All right, guys, today we got a real special guest, somebody that's been in this game for a really long time, doing the content that I do, doing the type of content that a lot of people that you see on YouTube do. He was one of the first to really do this type of content. The one, the only Mikey T, the movie star, man. Yo, so how
Yo,
you
what
doing today,
is good?
bro?
What is good, man? I appreciate that introduction, man. I'm good, man. I'm just working on content as usual. You know what I mean? Live videos, new interviews, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your platform today, Panda.
Man, I appreciate you reaching out, bro. I want to help the people understand who you are more and your background. So, how did you come up with the name Mikey T, the movie star?
So the name Mikey T, the movie star, I guess it goes back to like the middle school days into the high school days when everybody was, creating like names for themselves for their social media platforms back in the day and shit. You know what I mean? So I had this.
We talking like MySpace?
I'm talking.
Oh,
I'm talking like all the way back to MySpace days. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I remember talking with Paris Hilton on MySpace, French Montana on MySpace, and it could all possibly be based off the fact that my name was Mikey T, the movie star. So when people would see that name kind of pop up, they would put a little bit of respect on that name. You know what I mean? They're like, Mikey T, the movie star. What's this guy do? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of where the name found its first platform. But where the name came from altogether is the fact that my brother was a director. So I kind of took that, that order. And I was like, he's the director, I'm the movie star. So it kind of came naturally to me the way I got the name.
That's smart marketing too. That's crazy that people caught on to that. Your brother, any a big name that we know?
Jeremiah Kipp, he had a movie that just premiered on Shutter this year called Slapface. So, he's building his name in the industry.
That's dope, man. Where did you grow up, and like what kind of family did you come from?
Well, I grew up in Connecticut. My whole life, I grew up in Connecticut. My parents were separated, but not separated. Like my dad lived at the other end of the state, and my mom lived where I grew up in a place called Norwich, Connecticut. So, so yeah, I was pretty much living with my mom, but due to the fact that I was like getting in fights with my brothers, I couldn't really live at my mom's no more. So I had to go move in with my dad because me and my brother, we had to share a room and we were just getting so many fights. I'd do messed up shit to him, like pour soda in his Nintendo game or some shit like that to just start a massive fight, and we would be punching each other throughout the whole house and, just destroying the crib. And my mom just couldn't take it. So she had to get me up out of the house. You know what I mean? But then I would keep going back and forth because I would get in trouble at the schools where my dad was living. So I would go back and forth to my mom's and shit. And I would always be like, I always missed my friends, going down there and hanging out with my friends. So that would be something that put me back as well. So that's kind of the life that I lived. My brother who I was speaking on, Jeremiah Kipp, he's about 13, 14 years older than me. So,
Oh, damn.
yeah, so he actually had graduated and he was in school in New York while my mom had, we had three other kids. She had three other kids from 86 to 93. So I had two other brothers, one older, one younger. And so we were growing up while he was out there, doing his thing, NYU, getting involved in movies and shit.
So for those people that are not familiar with Connecticut, like what in the areas that you grew up, was it like the hood? Was it like really urban or, more like straight edge, like hardworking white collar people?
Where I grew up was called low income housing. I guess it would be called row housing. You know what I mean? Some people referred to it as project housing. And, it was pretty natural. You know what I mean? I lived like 100 feet from the school. So it's not like we even had to rely on buses coming to pick us up. You'd literally just have to wake up in the morning and walk to school. You know what I mean? Or you just have to wake up and walk to the grocery store or walk to the Chinese buffet. You know what I'm saying? Anything like that. In everyday life was pretty simple. I mean, we had a basketball court. You know what I mean? Even though I wasn't really balling like that, but I would go out and interact with the other kids and shit like that back in the day. So That's kind of how I grew up in the sense out there. You know, the elementary school was right there, and then by the time I got to middle school, my grandparents took me up out of there though, because it was kind of looked at. It was low income housing. There was a lot of one of my best friends had got deported back to Haiti back in the day. It was kind of a dead end. So my grandparents came and just moved the whole family out to one half of the family to Rhode Island, which is the bordering state of Connecticut. And then I stayed with my dad, who I told you at the beginning, he actually was living at the end of Connecticut. So I stayed in Connecticut. Maybe not the best decision I ever made, you know what I mean? Because Connecticut is kind of a dead end state. You know what I mean? I've done a few things out here, but the best part of being from Connecticut is the fact that we're right near New York. You're right near Massachusetts. You know what I mean? Jersey's a drive away, Philly's a drive away. You know what I mean? It's nothing to get out, to Virginia.
So would you say that it was kind of more of like a small town vibe where you were growing up?
Yeah, it was a small town vibe. You know what I mean? Like I was saying, you would walk to the grocery store or you'd walk to get something to eat, or you'd go up past the grocery store and go to Strawberries and get some CDs or tapes. I was getting tapes back then and shit, you know what I mean? But you'd go there and you get your music, you know what I mean? It was really small. You go get some Wendy's, you know what I mean? And you talk with your friend, your friend would be like, Socrates would always be asking me like, "So Mikey T, do you rap?" And I'm like 11 years old at the time. You know what I mean? I'm like 11 years old out there walking to go get a junior bacon cheeseburger and go listen to some music at Strawberries. You know what I'm saying? It just conversations like that. Who's your favorite rapper? You know what I'm saying? At that point in time, you could never visualize getting out of Connecticut. You know what I mean? You could never visualize actually making yourself a part of the music industry. You know what I mean? Nobody could see that in our future back then.
And so, like, were you at that time in the streets, or you just like were someone that really loved hip hop and like saw a future in hip hop in some way?
Well, the thing was, like I said, I was like 11 years old. You know what I mean? I was like 10, 11 years old hearing my first rap albums. Um, uh, I wouldn't say so much in the street, but there would be a lot of like when you're in an elementary school and you're just kind of acting more like you're in high school. Like we would be fighting outside of schools. I remember getting jumped when I was in the third grade. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. But as far as in the streets, you know what I mean? I wasn't even really introduced to marijuana and stuff like that until I was like 13, 14 years old. You know what I mean? So I wasn't out there. I mean, back in the day, I remember, from one apartment to another, somebody's like, here, run this, what you would think is a cigarette up to apartment 37B. You know what I mean? But you just wouldn't even know any better. You would do dumbass shit like one of your friend would find a bunch of bullets and then you would walk around to the different houses, you know what I mean? And like you would just have little crazy little things like, oh, these kids are running around selling bullets, and then they'd call the police, you know what I mean? Then the police show up to the houses and shit like that. I wasn't really in the streets back then like that because I was just so young. Now, when I moved out of there, that's when I was in like high school and shit like that, and shit started to change. I remember back in the day at that point, like the kids looked at me as somebody different. They're like, yo, he came from somewhere else that we don't really understand. We look down on the people that come from Norwich and come and move up into Stonington. It's kind of a more middle class area, as you were saying. You know what I mean? And I remember being in the lunchroom taking orders. Yo, you want an eighth? Boom, 40. Quarter, 80. Boom. Lined up literally at my lunch table taking orders like that. But then the weed price dropped drastically. I remember the kid came up to me one day. He's like, "So you got that quarter?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's good?" He's like, "For 40, right?" I'm like, "Oh shit, the game done fucked up, man. The game done fucked up." So I was like, it wasn't worth it.
So at what age did you start to get into like YouTube creating content or seeing like some kind of future in covering hip hop?
So, like I said, we were all really fascinated with music and making it out, based on music. You know what I mean? So that's why when I was like 14, 15 years old, into that era, of listening to all like the D Block and the G Unit music, my friends and I, we were almost like we were starting to condition ourselves. I was looking at it like that because we would ride around all day, smoking weed all day, listening to the most classic hip hop. Like I felt like we were conditioning ourselves to being in the industry. It wasn't until I was 18 years old though, and I grabbed my own crib because I was like, I just got out of high school. I was like, I want to get my own crib, so I went and I rented this beach house, and then I started seeing what the internet was becoming with hip hop. And this had to be 2008, so I'm about 20 years old. So I was seeing what hip hop was becoming, studying all the hip hop websites, and I was like, this whole development of the way that people are putting information out, I can use this structure and actually use it to push out my content, and then more people will see it. And all of these websites really started taking to my content. I don't know what it was back in the day if they didn't have as many creators, because now you'll see all the new hip hop or all the existing hip hop websites, they have all their writers, they have different creators, they have podcast hosts. But I was going to all of the websites and basically letting them use my content, and they would give me their reach. Like all these dope ass websites. World Star actually put up my first interview. So I basically studied the game, man, from that point, knowing all the artists, knowing who I wanted to hear stories from more, and then actually seeing the people that were putting it out to the world.
And so I saw that you had one channel, Mikey T the movie star, right? And then you switched over to Report Card Radio. What made you do that switch?
Well, man, when I was running the Mikey T, the movie star channel, it was just crazy because, I was going out, I was filming DJ Khaled, I was filming Ace Hood, I was doing all the Rick Ross after parties, shit like that. I would literally be filming in the middle of the street in Miami, Florida, DJ Khaled getting out of his drop top with Ace Hood. And, they just had Woke Up in My New Bugatti playing, you know what I mean? All these different songs playing. And you know how YouTube will started to react to those songs being played on the channel in the later years. You know what I mean? YouTube just got so commercialized, like all the hip hop websites have become commercialized. So I was like, man, I need to step back. I need to have a fresh start. It's not about incorporating the artist's music in what you do. They're selling that. You have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on the material that you're going to monetize on and the material that you're going to use to license in the future as well. So that's really why I stepped back and started a new channel. And now I see everybody is creating secondary channels for their clips. They're running the long interviews and then they have their clips channels. So that's something I may do in the near future as well. It's all about expanding on this YouTube shit.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's never ending, man. Cause like I see like your format is mainly just like the live. You're not really like cutting it up, right? But you're saying that in the future you might do that because it does hurt your algorithm, right? When they like, when you're not like watching it the full way and everything.
Yeah, sometimes people will only watch 2 minutes of your interview. You know what I mean? Sometimes people they'll be like, sometimes you'll have 100,000 people see 5 minutes of your interview. They won't even know you have a whole nother 45 minutes of the interview. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy the way YouTube works. And another thing I'm going to be getting on is actually putting all of my full interviews on Spotify and kind of expanding in podcast format as well. I want to use like all my existing interviews. I must have like 30, 40, 50 interviews, just from 20 to an hour and 15 minutes to just put all up in, as my catalog.
Right. Yeah, that's smart, man. So, like you said, very early on, you were out here getting it, just like coming outside with your camera and really going to some pretty rough spots too. Were you like ever afraid of like getting touched?
Man, honestly, never really feared getting touched. I mean, there was a situation where I got pulled over by the police. That would be like my worst case scenario. You know what I mean? Getting arrested. You know what I mean? I wasn't so much worried about what was going to happen to me out there. You know what I mean? I was 18 years old. I had already been through some of the worst things already. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really so much scared. Maybe I was a little naive back then going to all these places, you know what I mean? Like the Pork and Beans in Miami. Literally, I'm there filming with an artist, and the feds rolled up, car doors open, guns drawn. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I was a little naive running out to Southside Jamaica, Queens, God Brewer, and all that. But I was sitting on the stoop with Ron Browse. You know what I mean? Shit like that. You know, maybe I was a little naive, but I don't regret none of it. You know what I mean? I was out there to make the history. I was out there to help these guys tell their stories. You know what I mean? Because back then, like you were saying, we had to wait so long to get the information. It's almost we kind of felt like we didn't have enough of it. That's another reason I got into the game. So I wasn't going to let traveling 2.5 hours to go to Queens stop me. I was more so concerned about, like I said, getting arrested or my car getting towed, little issues like that that would fuck me up financially. You know what I mean? Having to pay for a lawyer, having to pay a $300 towing fee, that shit would piss me off, man. But I was more concerned. I was more concerned with going out there and making the history, man.
So how did you like come up with the plan of like, oh, I'm gonna go to Miami this weekend. I'm gonna do this. Like, how were you connecting with the artist? Was it through MySpace?
Well, the first ways that I actually started working out of New York, and then I got the opportunity to move to Miami, Hollywood, Florida, which is about 25 minutes from Miami. I got the opportunity to move out there in 2011. And it was really a no brainer because that's where all the talent was. You know what I mean? I was doing a lot between New York, New Jersey, and Philly at first, but getting my opportunity to go out to New York was, I mean, go out to Florida was a no brainer. Now, when I first started in New York, I it might have been off of MySpace where I got the first interview with Freaky Zeke. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, Freaky Zeke's the fourth member of Dipset, and he's not really getting any credit for it. So I reached out. Yeah, he didn't really get the credit for being the fourth member. He was also the president.
I feel like you're really underrated when it comes to this, man. Like you've been doing it for so long and like the number of subscribers don't really add up to what you deserve, right?
It's different
Has
back
there
then.
been anything in particular that you feel that has held you back from getting what you deserve?
You know, back in the day, honestly, man, it wasn't so much about creating a YouTube. Back in the day, I was trying to create my own record label. You know what I mean? I was trying to create my own Death Row Records. You know what I mean? I was trying to become, something like that, like an Interscope Records. That was my goal, to make music in this industry. You know what I mean? And found a label. And now in more recent years, podcasting and YouTube has become the spectacle to where we've seen rappers actually come into our game, you know what I mean, and start to be very successful. Why are they very successful? Because they have a history with the viewer. You know what I mean? Some people start with blogging, they don't have that long history with an artist. um Now, as far as something that would have held me back and maybe not showing my face on camera consistently at the beginning, you know what I mean? Because I actually had an opportunity to be a host on $1 million Worth of Game with Gilly the Kid and Wallow. And at that point in time, I was not willing and able to show my face on camera, which was a very big mistake in my part. But at that point in time, I was just filming so many different artists. I was filming Gilly. I was filming Rab, Dark Low. I was filming everybody. So I didn't really need to jump on the camera at that point in time. When Rab got locked up, Dark Low and myself, we were about to start carrying the OBH torch just like Low had done the first time Rab got locked up. But yeah, we were about to start carrying it just like that, like he had done back in 2013, 2012 and shit. The thing was, Dark Low got locked up. At that point in time, I'm like, yo, Gilly blew up. Gilly blew up out of here. Dark Low got arrested. A lot of the people that I create content with have moved on. You know what I mean? Between getting locked up and Gilly blowing up, and just his time is all over the place. So that's why I started putting myself on camera more. So I think that might have been where I messed up in the beginning.
What was the reason why you didn't want to put yourself on camera? Because you were basically doing like the Vlad thing, right? Behind the camera, just talking that way.
Yeah, well, maybe one of the major things why I didn't put myself on camera was just the not having a second angle or not having a third angle. Because at a certain point in time, I started using a second angle. You know what I mean? My bro C's would actually be running around with me to all the interviews, and we had a side angle, a front angle. That could have been one of the issues. Also, I never really had the setup of a podcast. You know what I mean? I never took the time to set up a pop shop. So I really was just running around to, go interview these guys at their locations. You know what I mean? Whether it was on a street corner or whether it was at a studio, you know what I mean? I never really had my own setup.
Right. You weren't like in a designated spot. Like you were like really getting it out here, just like anywhere possible, right? Like
Even to this day, it's like, you can set up in Connecticut, but when are the artists going to be out here in Connecticut? You know what I mean?
that's crazy that you were saying that you had an opportunity to be on $1 million worth of game with Gilly, right? So you do regret not putting your face on camera prior to that? Like, what prevented you from still being able to be a host? They just said that you weren't well known enough.
Well, I just didn't put my face on camera. We actually produced 2 episodes. It didn't really work out in that format. And I was going by a name of Mikey, no trace, no face. I just didn't really. I knew where $1 million worth of game was going from the first place. You know what I mean? I always believed in Gilly the Kid, and Wallow coming home was just like throwing gasoline on the fire.
Right.
You know what I mean? But in all honesty, I just didn't put my face on the camera, and it was a bad move. You know what I mean? It was a bad move, like turning down an interview with Little Uzi Vert. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just make bad moves at certain points of your career, but I just didn't expect to be on camera. You know what I mean? I've always dealt with an array of artists. Like even to this day, I've thought about setting up a podcast network for different artists. So I never really envisioned myself being on camera. Even though I had the name Mikey T, the movie star, I kind of stepped back and I was the director myself.
How do you feel about, like you were talking about earlier, about artists coming into this space and creating content now? Because we've seen that the music business isn't necessarily as profitable as it once was, right? I mean, before people were selling full on albums, now it's really more about just buying certain songs. You're not even, or just streaming,
Dreaming.
and like you get barely any money from a stream, you know? How do you feel about them switching up and being multifaceted and coming into this space now?
I feel like a lot of these rappers, they need to watch their ass when they jump into my field. You know what I'm saying? You got to watch you got to watch what you say, because next weekend could come back to haunt you. You know what I mean? If you're talking about somebody interviewing somebody and then you have some previous video footage of you doing the same thing, like this game can come back to haunt you like that. You know what I'm saying? I get what all the artists are thinking. They're like, yo, if they're going to stream me for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, maybe I should just start a whole hour-long show and they'll stream me the whole hour and I'll make 20 or 30, 40 times the amount of money. I get it. You know what I mean? A lot of these rappers are coming in and they're dominating. They're doing a couple thousand viewers on their live streams. Like I said, I believe it's because they have the history with the viewer. A lot of these people that are watching the podcast, they have literally gone on iTunes and purchased the music for $1.50 or for $10. Why are they not going to watch them on the stream? But you know what I mean? Like, the people that are doing it, they can't break up relationships that they're going to have with other people. Like China Mac, for instance, calling out Math Hoffa over interviewing Troy Ave. Well, now Adam 22 is interviewing Troy Ave. How are you going to fault Math Hoffa for interviewing Troy Ave when it's something that is just going to naturally happen? You know what I mean? And, just everything going on with the internet, man. I think China Mac is doing amazing. Like I've seen this guy like come up from being a rapper to recognizing his potential as a personality on the internet and totally making the swift change to keep going with that. Same thing with Gilly. Same thing with Gilly, man, because both these guys had a major passion for their music career.
Shout out to China Mac, man. Yeah, most definitely. It is crazy because these days it's not just about the music, it's about people wanting to be entertained, right? Like a lot of times you'll see fans, they may like somebody's music, but if they're boring on Instagram or something, they don't really don't really entertain you, they may not like that. Or if somebody's music is not as good, but on Instagram they're really entertaining and they like that person's personality, it'll make them like the music even more. It's pretty crazy, like you said. Man, it's definitely interesting because, like, you know, you're coming into the space, you've already built relationships with other artists, with other people. So in a sense, you're going to be biased to a certain extent, right? And we've seen that with the situation with Nori. Like that blew up not too long ago, not wanting to interview certain people because of your relationships. And
Right.
I think that in this space is the first time that we've seen, because what would you consider what you and I do? Would you consider that a form of journalism?
I would, we are, you know what I mean? We're basically, what we're doing is putting our spin, we're giving our opinion on everything that's going on in the music industry. Plus, we're sprinkling in the facts as well. That's kind of what we're doing, man. I journalism, you know what I mean? I've never really jumped on a website, wrote an article and stuff like that. But what we're doing now with this long format podcasting, it is in a sense journalism.
Right. So it's kind of like a borderline, right? Like for I think for most people, they would consider somebody that went to college, studied it, and
Right.
is more professional. That is a journalist, and they put a lot of hard work into that. So I don't want to take credit, for like something that I'm not really not. But at the same time, I feel like the type of content that you and I do, you have to be responsible. Still, there's still responsibility. There's certain standards that you still have to practice. But what we're seeing is kind of like a conflict of, you have these artists that come in that are typically from the streets. They have a code that they have to live by as well, right? Because you're being conditioned by the streets to uphold that code. But now you're in the space of creating content. And it's like with Nori's situation, for example, do I live by the street code and that's my man, and no matter what, I'm riding with my man Joe? Or do I go by the journalistic standard of, hey, we had to get the entire story, we had to get both sides? So I see a lot of different issues arise now because of the different amount of people that come into the content creating space.
Yeah, you know what we are? We're hip hop influencers, as they call everybody now, influencers. So we could throw the hip hop in front of it. Now with Nori actually using Drink Champs and allowing Fat Joe to come on his platform, not allowing Cuban Link to come on his platform. I don't really think it's in regard to any sort of street relationship. I think it's in regard to Fat Joe and or Nori, excuse me, Nori not really wanting all of that crazy ass, all the crazy issues popping up on his show. Because when Cuban Link goes off, he goes off, man. And,
My
and,
man
and
Cuban. Shout out to
yeah,
Cuban. No,
so
you're
I
you're
think
right
Nori
though.
is kind of like the Kanye West interview threw Nori for a loop. You know what I mean? Nori probably should have canned that interview out of respect to Kanye West's legacy. But everything that Cuban Link has been doing, it's like, I don't think it really has to do with the streets. I think it more so has to do with Nori doesn't want it to affect his personal relationship with Fat Joe, which he has cherished for the last, 25 years or whatever.
There's a lot of layers to that situation because if you take a look at the perception, the public perception, it's going to be, how are you going to let somebody go on there and talk about your man like that? You're supposed to be loyal. You can't do that, right? At the same time, for Nori, he's in a tough spot because I know he's not going to be able to defend every single thing that Cuban would bring up. How would
Yeah,
you say your pun's man? The pun was your brother. That was your twin. How you let him get robbed? This the lawsuit came out. Obviously, you see what happened. It's in the court documents. Nori's not going to have a response for all of that. At the same time, Joe owns a percentage of Drink Champs, so you're not going to let somebody come on the show and talk badly about one of the owners. You know, there's
Right.
a lot of different layers to it, but I see what you're saying. But like for the fans, that in the end is going to speak very loudly. It's going to make Nori look bad regardless. It's a lose-lose situation for him no matter what he does. He's not going to look good. You know, he's
That's
not going to look good with having someone come up on there. And I love Cuban. I love him, you know, but um, I think that it was a good look for Nori to say that as far as what it did for Cuban, because it was like what he's been saying has merit, you know, that there is some form of blackballing going on.
Nori acknowledged the blackballing of Cuban Link.
By him saying like, you know, I would never interview, you know, so like it got the dialogue going. It got people, you know, talk, because for Nori, I think that wasn't a smart move on his part, because he could have used a vague response. He didn't have to drop somebody's name, but by him saying that, you know, it really created a shitstorm for him, and that's why he's had to address it multiple times.
Yeah, Nori had Hot Boy Turk on his show. You know what I'm saying? And he knew bringing Hot Boy Turk on the show that could have went a certain way, and we saw what ended up happening at that point. Turk went off. He went crazy talking about how Rick Ross was talking about him. French Montana owed him money, and then Nori was feeling a way about it. He was like, oh my God, I could just tell by the way Nori was reacting. He was like, this guy done called out all of my friends. But then, if you remember, Kevin Hart came on the show maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, and Kevin Hart said that his favorite interview on Drink Champs was Hot Boy Turk's interview. And that just stamped it all right there. But bringing up the fact that Fat Joe owns a portion of Drink Champs, I actually didn't know that. So yeah, that right there is going to throw up a red flag for anybody trying to come up there and discredit the name of Fat Joe. And Wack 100 just went off, went crazy, made himself look totally ridiculous on the internet when he was on Clubhouse, once again talking about his Big Pun documentary. Made himself look absolute crazy.
Wait. You think that it made him look crazy? Like, what about, are you talking about, because, you know, there was multiple different Clubhouse audios. He first came out and he was going off. Like, it was crazy. Like, everybody was shocked, right? Everybody was shocked that, dang, I thought him and Joe were cool, you know?
Right.
And he was like, you already stole $4 million. I seen the paperwork, blah, you know, blah, blah. And then he comes back. He's at Rolling Loud. He kind of backpedals.
Ran into Fat Joe.
Right. He's all like, I want to kill the narrative that this is this. And then next.
You set the narrative.
Right, exactly.
You said, I don't need to call Fat Joe for shit.
Right.
First of all, Wack, if you make a Big Pun documentary, a Big Pun movie, series, whatever it is, if you don't have the full endorsement of Fat Joe, I don't want to see it. If Fat Joe isn't in it, I don't want to see it. What point does Wack 100, what purpose does Wack 100, a dude from the West Coast, serve in putting out Big Pun's story? If the story was going to be told in a rightful manner, somebody from New York would have told it. But everybody from New York sees that Big Pun story isn't being touched by Fat Joe. If Fat Joe isn't touching the story, there's a reason it's not coming out. So Wack 100 is doing one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen in hip hop by producing Big Pun's story, trying to pull some 50 Cent shit right here. He's really trying to weasel his way into the game any way he can.
You don't think that he's helping Big Pun's wife, though? I mean, he's getting done something that other people have not been able to get done, or unwilling to get done for that family.
Well, you know, I think if anybody was going to put the project together, it would be New York producers. I think Wack 100 is really just trying to, you know what I mean? He's trying to get in where he fits in. The man recently said he would tell the story of Troy Ave. You're going to tell the people from Troy Avenue don't even respect Troy Ave. What story is there to tell of Troy Ave's? He hasn't even had a career worth of film yet. So I really just think Wack 100 is trying to get in where he thinks he's going to fit in. He saw Straight Outta Compton. Straight Outta Compton had a $60 million production budget.
Yeah.
I want to see what type of production budget he gets for, you know what I'm saying, Miss Rios and the Big Pun story. You know what I mean?
I definitely think that, people are questioning his intentions with this, right? But regardless of his intentions, I do feel like it is going to help the family out because, what they have said is that Fat Joe has blocked the actual project from coming out for years, and I'm pretty sure it's because it's not going to paint him in a very good light. But I do agree with you that in order for the story to be told the right way, all parties that were there need to be involved. Like Cuban Link needs to be involved too because he was there with Pun on the street all the time when he's going to shows. Liza knows Pun mainly from the intimate personal level, the at home version of him, but does she have all the details about him, out there on the road doing all those different things in the studio? I'm not sure. She did say that she was there when he was writing particular songs, writing the Don Cartagena, at home with them. But yeah, there's a lot of different elements, and of course, Joe needs to be a part of it. But Joe's whole thing is like, I'm not going to help you do that. He said before on Drink Champs, he said, I'll be a part of it for free if you come out and apologize and say that I never stole from you, which is not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. But of course, everyone's wondering, like, how is that story going to be told?
Yeah, man. And I don't know. I just don't believe that Fat Joe has blocked any attempt for a Big Pun story to be made. We got to look at the facts. You know what I mean? After Straight Outta Compton, we still haven't even seen a follow up, even though that film was massively successful. We've seen movies from the Notorious B.I.G., we saw Tupac's movie, we saw Eminem's movie and 50 Cent's movie, they got made based on how popular both of those acts were at the current time. Pac and Biggie's films, they got made based on their legendary status.
Right.
Straight Outta Compton, that movie showed if you really put a production budget behind a hip hop film, it could get its just due. But I just don't think we are there at this point in time for the Big Pun and the Fat Joe story. They may be rushing this. You know what I mean? I wouldn't put it past Wack 100 to rush this for a cheap ass bag. I mean, it's like, okay, so what? You're going to make 300,000 on the back end? Let's worry about the project in full. Let's make sure the movie gets told in the proper way, or else we're going to have some Michelet, you know what I'm saying?
Surviving Compton. The Surviving
Yeah, we're
Compton,
going
what
to
she
have
did.
we're gonna have some Lifetime style shit here, and that's not what I understand they want the bag. Suge Knight done sold the rights to all of his shit 6, 7 times. He sold it as a movie, a documentary, a series, a biography. You know what I mean? Let's make sure the justice gets done and not just somebody who wants a cheap bag real quick. We all want to get a bag, man, but let's get that shit appropriately. And I don't want to say this and be any type of disrespectful to any of the family members of Big Pun as well. Because, we lost a legend when we lost Pun, and you guys lost something more than that. You lost a family member, a friend, somebody that y'all knew personally.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Um, I guess we'll just have to see how that whole situation pans out. But I know as well with her giving him the rights to remix some of Pun's songs. Some people definitely feel some type of way about that because of the regional differences. Is his West Coast influence going to influence the sound of the music? You would think that somebody from New York would be producing that situation, right? Wack has said that it's going to be Latin artists that he's putting on the songs with the Pun. I don't know. He even spoke about possibly putting out a Chris Rivers album, but Wack is really smart. He knows what he's doing when he's talking and he's saying the things that he does, because even after he backpedaled on that whole situation with at Rolling Loud, right, with Joe, and he said that killed the narrative, and then next thing you know, he was back on Clubhouse again saying some other things, and they did that Clubhouse with Liza, and yeah, I think it's really confusing. It's creating a lot of dialogue for people, so we just don't know.
And also what he did to Cuban Link. You know what I mean? He reels these artists in by saying, "Yo, I can promote your music. We can really get something going." And yeah, if something gets going, Whack 100 is all about it. But he doesn't really want to give the wheels a spin. He doesn't want to grease the wheels when it comes to somebody like Cuban Link, when it comes to somebody like Cadillac Ta, although he's going to, string along this narrative for them that he can help them become successful. When push comes to shove, he's really nowhere to be found. Like Cuban Link had told me about Wack 100 wanting to hear his music, wanting to help him with his music, all that type of shit. You know what I mean? But I can see Wack 100 trying to get in the good graces of Cuban Link at this point. You know what I mean? To be one of the producers on the series for the Big Pun show. That could be one of the positives. I'm not sure. I think they had started to mend their beef. From what I hear, Wack 100 is on a apology tour right now to make amends with everyone from New York.
Yeah, from what Cuban told me when I interviewed him, it was pretty crazy. He said that he had called him on FaceTime. He showed that Liza was there in the offices and everything, and he was telling him like, "Yo, it's your time. You about to be the man now. Like you're gonna be a part of this project, or he's from Cuban. Cuban said that Wack said you're better than crack. You're better than Fat Joe. Okay, which
I seen
that's kind of crazy if he has a relationship with Joe, but I don't know. It wouldn't be the first time where Wack said something like how he reeled Cuban in. Next thing you know, he was saying like, "Yo, you was asking for protection on the West Coast and everything," but he's hitting him behind the scenes saying this is just entertainment and everything. Don't take it too serious, and but you're still making him look bad. So I don't know how it's benefiting him necessarily.
Yeah, Wack 100 also told Cadillac Ta that he was better than Ja Rule.
Man.
I'm just messing around.
I'm sure you've run into the whole culture vulture, cultural appropriator thing so many times because you're not black and you're reporting on a black art form. Tell me about that and how you deal with that.
Well, I actually ran into that when I just did one of my most recent interviews. I recently locked in with 10 Toes Down, 10 Toes Down TV. He's an amazing creator, man. Just the way that he holds the audience interest, you know what I mean? Like you were saying earlier, it's like you got to have that interest factor about you. And 10 Toes Down has really come on the scene and just taken shit over. There's no denying that. People can say all that they want about, oh, he talks about Hassan Campbell in all of his videos, but 10 Toes Down can literally make any type of headline in his video, wake up and have 350 people watching his live. So 10 Toes Down did an interview on my channel, and Hassan Campbell decided to go on another YouTube channel. I'm not even sure which one. He didn't want to mention me on his own YouTube channel, but Hassan Campbell actually went on and called me a colonizer. So that's basically one of the, most recent times that I've been faced with that type of situation. After that, I ethered Hassan Campbell on about 2 videos, and he hasn't said my name since. But you know what I'm saying? That's pretty much the extent of where that went. Hassan Campbell tried to call me a colonizer, so I responded to that appropriately by blasting his ass on a few blogs, man. And I haven't heard from him since.
What do you think about that? Do you think because just not being black in the black art form and reporting on it is that just like low hanging fruit for people to, if they have an issue with you, to just point out? Because I feel like whether you're black or you're not, like you can have respect for the art form, right? You can give back to the art form. You can do things for the culture. Because even if you're black, there are people that are black that exploit the culture as well. Because when you can just be about getting yours, not giving back to it.
So, basically dealing with that, is that what the question was?
Yeah. Like how do you, well, I guess just your whole opinion on the whole situation with that in general.
Oh yeah, man. People, when Hassan Campbell basically came at me, he had known who I was. I had a whole conversation. One of Hassan Campbell's friends, I had run into him in Miami, and we had a whole conversation on the phone. And I was telling him about how I would like him to, say something about Arab on his channel since he had a big ass reach. You know what I mean? So in all honesty, I feel like when somebody sees you do something that they don't like, something that doesn't really fit with their script, that's when they're going to come and they're going to try to call you out of place. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys and a lot of the content creators have shown me love before they seen me on live. A lot of people hit me up and they're like, yo, Mikey T, I've been watching your interviews from 2010. You know what I'm saying? I respect the hell out of you. You know what I mean?
So you've been able to build relationships with so many artists, right? How have you been able to do that so successfully? Like, what is that process like for you?
You know, man, it's crazy because when you interview an artist like Memphis Bleak and he tells you at the end of the interview, yo, that was the best interview I've ever done. You know what I mean? When you do an interview with somebody like Cassidy and then you hear him reciting some of the same things that you guys were talking about in other interviews, you see that you leave that type of an impression on the artist. You know what I mean? Or it's just something that you do while you're there. Like when I pulled up on Casanova after he did the Don't Run record, and I just did something in front of him where he was like, oh, damn, Mikey T is crazy. I mess with Mikey T. You know what I mean? You leave your impression on these artists, you know, like I remember when I first interviewed Ja Rule and I went up to the Crack House, their studio in Manhattan. One of my boys told me he was seen into the studio and they told Ja Rule, oh, Mikey T's here. Ja Rule said, Mikey T's here? That dude is crazy. You know what I mean? Just the fact that you leave an impression on these artists, you know what I mean? And you can actually continue the relationship. I know if, you know, something happens for me tomorrow, that I could really call on a lot of these guys. Like if I were to go and do a major deal on MTV or Revolt or any VH1 or BET or E News Channel, I know I could call on a lot of these guys just because of, you know, the rapport that we set up and, you know, the memories that we set up and shit like that.
Do you think that you're kind of like the Eminem of the hip hop content creating space, where it's like you're accepted, but at the same time not fully?
The Eminem of the content creator. Wouldn't that be Adam 22? Wouldn't Adam 22 be
No, hip hop content create. You know, because Adam does some things that is not really like hip hop. You know, he does a lot of stuff that's just not purely about hip hop. I feel like because you cover almost like that golden era of hip hop, right?
I
He's
gotta
more of like the drill, like these other guys.
yeah, I gotta
You
be
don't
like
see him as much, you know.
I got to be like the 50 Cent power of the dollar version of the hip hop bloggers, you know what I mean? But shit, man, you know, it's just crazy because you know, just keep on doing my thing and keep on traveling to all these different areas and shooting. You know, when you do go out in public, you get your flowers. You know what I mean? I remember one of the last video shoots I went to. It was Tony Moxberg, Benny the Butcher, all them guys on a record called Love. And just the love that I was getting out in Yonkers was crazy. So it's like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't really compare myself. It would have to be like a very Slim Shady era Eminem, you know what I mean? Before he got really like ultra big. I would not put myself on the infinite Eminem type of level because that Eminem was just kind of trash. You know what I mean?
You didn't like the infinite version?
I did not mess with the infinite version of Eminem. Although I haven't listened to that shit extensively, you know what I mean? I was just more into the Eminem that came in. I was really more into the post Slim Shady Eminem. Slim Shady LP was not my favorite.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking like Marshall Mathers LP and Eminem Show.
Right.
Like that's when he was like at his peak, where it was crazy. I mean, like after that, he still got way bigger and everything. But like,
8
I think
Mile,
for us, like,
8 Mile right there. And then they made him
right.
do the album that he didn't really want to do, Encore. And it, you know, it was just about as good as everyone, you know what I mean, as he wanted it to be. It wasn't really that good. I thought the Marshall Mathers LP was better than the Eminem Show, but the Eminem Show was definitely a lot lighter. You know what I mean? That Marshall Mathers LP, man, that album will induce depression. I'm not even lying. That Eminem will induce depression. And then the Eminem before that, the Slim Shady LP Eminem, was just a little bit too like I'm not trying to go into my rap records and listen to old stories about when you had to beat people up in, middle school and grade school and shit like that. You know what I mean? Even though I was living through some of that shit in my life, fighting in, that level of age, that low of an age, I didn't really want to hear that on Eminem rapping about, D'Angelo Bailey and shit like that back in the day.
That's what some people have said, that his music has not aged very well. You know, but if you would say you're a compare yourself to a rapper in the content creating space, who would you say? If not Eminem, who would you say?
I think that was it. 50 Cent, Power of the Dollar. 50 Cent, Power of the Dollar, that stage.
So real underrated, not getting your enough props, but still respected, right? Still out here hustling.
And also pretty good. You know what I mean? Because
Definitely good, yeah.
Power of the Dollar, great lyrics from 50, not necessarily to the level of what Cormega was doing and Nas, though, but really freaking good, that made you stand out. And like also using street metaphors that you just weren't hearing, also giving you a feeling, a real visceral feeling of, will he make it? Will 50 Cent end up somewhere? How will 50 Cent act when he makes it to the mainstream? How will Mikey T act when he makes it to the mainstream? You know what I mean? Different type of shit like that.
You gonna forget about us little people? Is that what you're saying?
50 Cent always goes back to Southside Jamaica, Queens. They need
That's
for that.
true. That's
You know
true
what I
though.
mean? He always gives back and shit like that. Yeah, and if that little bitch 6ix9ine can run around giving away $100 bills, I can do the same shit. Well, you'll see all the blogs.
You've had some viral moments throughout your career in YouTube, right? One of those situations was the Tony Sunshine, and some guys pressed you about putting out some video that wasn't supposed to come out. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was filming with Tony Sunshine for a few weeks. We had filmed a few episodes. One night we were in the studio and I was filming because back then I had a camera that hold like 30 hours worth of content. You know what I mean?
This was still tape, or this was digital, like
This
on a
was
hard drive?
this was digital. You take it from the camera, put it right on the computer, but it held 32 hours worth of footage. So let's just say deleting footage was a little bit of a hassle. You'd have like 300 files in there. So I'm filming all night. I get invited to go to the studio. And then at the end of the night, Tony Sunshine and a group of people are all talking in a circle. They tell me to come over. Mikey T, that footage needs to get deleted. Mikey T, the footage needs to get deleted. I'm like, oh, okay, the footage needs to get deleted. They're like, but
Wait, all
don't.
3 weeks, like all the couple of weeks of footage he's talking
No,
about?
we had released an interview, but I'd gone to the studio. Like they had invited me out to a show. Tony Sunshine was doing a show, but then they also invited me out to the studio to record. Just B-roll type shit. You know what I mean? Shit that you wouldn't even really be able to use this day and age because of the artist music playing in the background. Artists like to have cameramen around. You probably know that, Panda.
Right.
They like to have cameramen around. So Tony Sunshine had me around. I'm filming everything. You know what I'm saying? No light propped up or anything like that. So the footage might have been a little bit dark. But nonetheless, Tony Sunshine's talking his shit on camera. He must have noticed he was saying some disses that he didn't want out to the public. So Tony Sunshine was like, you got to delete all the footage from tonight, Mikey T.
Oh, so from just tonight. So he was feeling himself and he was saying some shit that could be interpreted as this is maybe the Joe, or like general to Terror Squad, the situation he left at that time?
Yeah, dissing Joe, dissing members of his own team. You know what I'm saying? So he actually wanted me to delete all that footage. And he told me some other shit. Mikey T, don't worry. We're going to bring you out to Orlando. We're going to shoot this whole documentary where I'm going to be training to do some boxing or some shit like that. So this is, mind you, this is 2010. You know what I mean? I'm a couple years into the game. I'm like, yo, all right, Tony Sunshine's talking about bringing me out to the mini mansion in Orlando. I'm going to film some shit. You know what I mean? He's selling me a dream. So then next thing I notice, I don't hear from Tony Sunshine for weeks. My calls are going unanswered. You know what I'm like? So I'm like, all right, you know what? I got this footage right here. I have a good connection with World Star Hip Hop. You know what I'm saying? Even though Tony Sunshine tried to fuck it up at the end of the video where they came in, they pressed me and shit, trying to mess up my relationship with World Star. I always kept a good relationship with World Star. So I threw up these videos of Tony Sunshine talking a bunch of shit on World Star. And this is just a notice to anybody that comes on my channel in the future. If you come on my channel and you do an interview and you're talking all kinds of shit, it's going out. I'm releasing it. If you're going to come on my channel and you're going to talk all kinds of shit, don't think you're calling me next week and trying to tell me, oh, Mikey T, we can't release it. It's going to look bad for my image. Mikey T, I have a contract with this dude where if I diss him, Tony Sunshine tried to tell me some bullshit that he had a contract with Fat Joe where if he dissed him, he would have to pay like $100,000 or something like that. What type of bullshit is that? The man has subliminally dissed Fat Joe about 100 times. Do you owe him 100 G's?
Right,
Because
right.
you ain't worth 100 G's, man. Fat Joe is not the reason that Tony Sunshine didn't blow up, for crying out loud. Tony Sunshine had like 6 record deals.
I think it was
He probably
7. At the time that he did that Vlad interview, he said 7. And that was like what, 2013, something real way back, you know what I mean? So
7 album deals. I want to know how many rehab facilities did they send you to, Tony Sunshine? That's what I want to know. How many rehabs did you have to check into, man? You know, when Fat Joe first heard 100%, he was like, what the hell's going on with this record? Why are they singing in Spanish and English? Let's just be real, man. If it wasn't for Fat Joe, the world probably wouldn't even know who Tony Sunshine is. Let's just be real. Being Big Pun's man wasn't going to do the job. Big Pun, amazing artist. Tony Sunshine, mediocre at best R&B singer. Every time Fat Joe had an R&B hook, they replaced him. They replaced Tony Sunshine. Akon replaced Tony Sunshine. Ashanti replaced Tony Sunshine. Let's be realistic when we're talking about this shit, man.
So let me play devil's advocate, okay? So him saying for you to delete it, why did you not want to delete it? Did you feel some type of way after he didn't return your phone call? So you're like, fuck this, I'm gonna do this out of spite to put it up?
Well, after that night, we're in the studio. Tony Sunshine like abruptly goes to the hospital. I don't know what the hell happened. Tony Sunshine was saying his throat hurts, so he abruptly went to the hospital. So we all break up out of the studio and all right, so you're going to the hospital? I guess I'm going back to Connecticut. You know what I mean? There goes our night for the work. But yeah, the footage just never got deleted. I held on to the footage. You know what I mean? That's something I wish I would have done a lot more. Wish I'd have a whole glossary of my footage. Back then, it was a little bit easier. As I said, I had like 30 hours of footage. The footage actually got put onto one of my editor's computer. Editor edited the shit up, sent it over to World Star, and that's pretty much how it got put out.
Were you mad at Tony? Like, were you mad at him for just like, I guess, dissing you in that way, like not returning your calls?
Nah, I was pretty much like, fuck it. You know what I mean? I was pretty much just like, all right, you know, I've tried to keep this relationship with Tony Sunshine. He was a little bit different of an artist that I was working with at that point. I was normally working with rappers. You know, I didn't let that slow my grind up. I actually moved on to better interviews. So I wasn't really feeling that type of way about Tony Sunshine. But, you know what I mean? We were releasing dozens of clips to World Star, some of the most controversial shit at that point in time. You know what I mean? Between all the 40 Glock stuff, you know what I'm saying? We were just releasing all that stuff to World Star. So it wasn't really like that. It was just about sort of like, okay, this is a controversial clip. Domination, kicking Maserati Fox out of G Unit. You know what I mean? I'm kind of known to have had a lot of these controversial clips up on World Star. So I moved on and I'm interviewing Murder Mook. And this is where the whole run-in with Tony Sunshine actually comes in. because
Yeah, so take us to that. Like, what was the situation looking like behind the camera? Because we weren't there, we couldn't see what was going on.
right. Yeah, so the whole situation pops up when I'm with Murder Mook. So like I said, I'm not dwelling on no R&B, no failed R&B singer, man. I really can't do that. I got to keep on moving on. So who's the next people I wanted to interview? Respect to my brother Herb McGruff. I got an interview with Murder Mook as well. And we all know Murder Mook was buzzing like crazy back then.
That's a fact.
You know, calling out Cassidy, challenging him to a $40,000 battle. So I'm like, yo, let me get an interview with Murder Mook. So I pull up, I link up with Herb McGruff in the Bronx. And Herb McGruff's manager got us some shots of Patron. So I was a little loose, man. I'm not going to front. I was a little loose that day. I was yelling on Tony Sunshine's homies too, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm a little loose. Herb McGruff is late. And then I'm like, all right, we got to pull up to Harlem. So we're between Harlem and the Bronx. Harlem and the Bronx is like mad close to each other. You know what I'm talking about? A geographical type of,
Yeah.
like it's actually pretty close to each other. I'm not thinking none of that. I'm just thinking, yo, I'm going to go get this work done. I'm going to go get this work in. So I go over there, me and Herb McGruff, we're doing the interview in his whip. Interview went great. Interview's online right now. All you got to do is type in Mikey T, the movie star, Murder Mook. So I'm doing the interview with Murder Mook in his whip. Next thing I notice, Murder Mook says, yo, I'm going to go get a drink. I'm like, you want anything? I'm like, me and my boy, I'm with two of my boys. I'm with two of my boys. And we're like, yeah, grab us a vitamin water or something. So he goes inside. Next thing I notice, Tony Sunshine and all of his people are running up. Tony Sunshine and his people run up. And I'm like, I said to my boys, I'm like, yo, I got to go face Tony Sunshine. I got to get out of this whip. So there was actually two people, I guess, pressed up against both sides of the car. So neither of my friends neither of them could get outside of the car. So I get outside of the whip, and then I look over to my right and I notice two cameramen standing right there.
Wow.
Yep. In my head, I go, damn. No wonder. I'm like, this is why Tony hasn't been calling me. He took the idea of Mikey T, the movie star, and just said, all right, all I really need is a cameraman. It would probably help if that cameraman didn't live 2.5 hours away in Connecticut or whatever the situation was. There was two cameramen standing out there, and I was like, oh, I see what this is. Because when I got out of that whip, I was pretty much ready for anything. You know what I mean? Rumors had started going around that they had said that Tony Sunshine was told to make it right. Whatever you got to do, make it right. So I get out of the car. Me and Tony Sunshine have that conversation. I let him know that the footage got into the hands of my editors. There was nothing I could do. He's like, well, why didn't you make a statement saying I didn't diss Fat Joe? And I was like, yo, nobody gives a shit that you didn't diss Fat Joe. They only care that you did diss Fat Joe. Well, why didn't you reach out to me? Why didn't I reach out to you? You were ignoring me for 3-4 weeks because you found another cameraman, because you probably didn't want to, you know what I mean, spend $1,000 to bring me out to Orlando or some petty ass bullshit like that. So what else everybody didn't see on camera was that there was about 12.5 people out there. There was like 18, 20 people out there lined up, you know what I mean? Pressed against the car. Tony Sunshine standing on a stoop right here. So I walk over, walk through everybody. Nobody put a hand on me. Walking through 6 dudes standing like some knights in armor. You know what I'm saying? On some real militant shit. So I walk over and I'm standing by Tony Sunshine, and he's like, you know what this has done to me? Like we're in some type of a freaking cinematic.
This is after the footage that we saw on the internet, because the footage that we saw is like you're right by the car.
Right. This is all the same day.
I know, but the scene you're talking about right now is after that. After that clip. Got you. Okay.
This is after that clip. Tony walked over to the sidewalk, and then I walked through all of his homies, and stood by him. And I was like, yo, Tony, how are we going to make this right? He's like, you know what you just cost me? And that's when he fed me that whole bullshit story about having some sort of a contract where if he dissed Fat Joe, he would get charged $100,000 or something like that. I really don't understand why he was trying to feed me that type of a story. That sounded like the most absurd bullshit I had ever heard. And that's pretty much where the day ended, man. As far as why they didn't do anything that day, I really can't explain more. Maybe they were just there to get that video footage to serve it up to whoever wanted to see it.
So when you're by the car, your collar kind of looks stretched out a little bit, but they didn't touch you. They didn't do anything to you.
Well, to be honest with you, man, if you notice that shirt, that's an old Hollister shirt. Prob That's the old Hollister shirt that I'd literally been wearing probably since, like, my high school days and shit like that, just to be real with you, man.
Right.
Them Hollister shirts Hollister Abercrombie kind of went out in popularity, but them shits would kind of wrinkle. And plus, like I said, I was out running around and it was a little bit hot, but that didn't come from nobody like grabbing my collar or anything like that.
Gotcha. And a lot of people were saying that it looked like you had been crying or that you were really scared. Like, what was your emotions at that moment when you seen all those guys? Because you said that, oh, Tony didn't diss Joe, or like he made you say that, right, on camera, pretty much.
Yo, yeah, but the whole thing is when I got out of that car, I was just ready for whatever. If somebody was going to punch me in the face, if somebody was going to throw me on the floor, if somebody was going to do whatever to me, I was ready for whatever was going to happen. You know what I mean? So was I scared? Was I nervous? Probably all that, but I wasn't too nervous or scared to get out of the car and confront him. I wasn't too scared or nervous to walk through all of his people and actually continue speaking to him. You know what I mean? But nah, he didn't do none of that shit to me, man. And pretty
But
much, I
but
just
why did you say that he wasn't talking about Joe when he was talking about Joe? Did you
well,
just
well, I had to make it look good for Tony Sunshine, man. I mean, shit, even Easy E signed off Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. You know what I mean? Even Easy E signed off Dr. Dre and Ice Cube when he freaking came on there and, you know what I mean, jumped him in the studio.
so you had the conversation with him after that, which he fed you that the bullshit about, oh, I get charged $100,000 for talking bad about Joe and everything. Did he give you any other further details, like at this point that he is back with Joe now? He doesn't want to beef with him anymore?
Oh, yeah, yeah. He was saying so. He was like, I was supposed to be on Fat Joe's next album. I had a hook on Fat Joe's next. Yeah, he was saying some shit like that, actually. I had a hook on Fat Joe's next album, and you just cost me this opportunity. You know what I mean? But like I said, every hook that Tony Sunshine ever had with Fat Joe, he was pretty much replaced.
Yeah, he laid down the reference vocals pretty much, right?
Yeah, he was laying down the reference vocals, and then they brought in Ashanti. You know what I mean? Or then they brought in Akon, or then they brought in R. Kelly. However it was, man. You know what I'm saying? Tony Sunshine just didn't get his just due in the game. I mean, it was his own boys who didn't find him to be talented.
Because on the Vlad interview, he did complain about the fact that like he wasn't featured on songs and everything like that. I would say that he is a talented singer, but I don't know, for 23 years, pretty much, he's never had an album put out. And what he said on that Vlad interview was that the 7 record contracts, he delivered an album each time, and they never got put out.
Yeah, you see this. You see this frequently, man. But the one of the things that I heard was when Rick Ross had Akon on a hook, Akon wanted to charge like 100 racks. So Ross was like, "Yo, Mass Pike, come redo this hook." But with like Fat Joe and Tony Sunshine, it was just like the complete opposite. It was like, "We need you, Ashanti. We need you." You know what I mean? So it was like kind of the complete opposite.
What was that experience like for you during those few weeks that you were recording with him? Did you feel like you were really building a rapport with him? Did you think that he was a solid dude, or like you picked up on certain things that were little red flags that maybe you didn't see at the time?
Oh yeah, you always know it's a red flag when an artist has you driving around doing his errands with you. You know what I mean? I was like cooling with Tony Sunshine and the man was like doing his errands. And I'm like, "Oh my God. Yo, bro, I got more important shit to do with my life, you know what I mean, than to watch you around like just handling the everyday things of your life, cuz I'm always trying to move around. Like I just said, I was interviewing Herb McGruff and then Murder Mook. But I do show these artists the respect. I try to show them the respect that they show me. That's why when Tony Sunshine invited me out to a show, I went, I filmed him at the show, you know what I mean? In addition to filming an interview for him.
How did the situation with him like start? Like, how did you meet him or get to know? He just like hit you up on online, or like how did that happen?
It might go back to, it's probably has to go back to MySpace, you know what I mean? Because I don't think Twitter was on and popping like that back in the day.
No.
So yeah, I had reached out on MySpace.
And at that time, he
Possibly email, man. My bad. Possibly email.
and at that time you said that you were not even covering singers, you were doing rappers. So what about him made you want to go ahead and pursue that to begin with? Just the
Well,
legendary TS group, him being a part of it, or
yeah, yeah. Sometimes you hear about members of the group that didn't really get their just due. You know what I mean? That didn't really get that exposure put on them. You know what I mean? You'd hear about certain members of the group. You know what I mean? But then you hear the other one's name, but you don't see as much video content. And I was kind of like, man, I would like to go shine a light on what he's been doing. I would like to explore and show the people on the internet, everybody, that he is still here and he has been pursuing a career, and also explain where some of the things may have went wrong. So yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons that I went after certain artists, because you would just see that they weren't getting their just due and they didn't have as much of a scope put on them. That's one of the reasons I got involved in the game in the first place. I didn't hear enough news about certain artists.
right. And then there was also footage that came out after that incident when you were in the car with Domination, I believe. Domination's going in on Tony. You know, what was that like? Like, what happened?
Domination, I built a relationship with Domination and Bang'em Smurf, and when Damo heard about what Tony Sunshine did, he was tight. He was like, "Yo, Mikey T, what is wrong with you? I wanted to slide on Tony Sunshine after that shit happened. Why didn't you call me?" You know what I mean? He immediately wanted to take it there. He's like, "How the hell would you let this R&B singer do that? We filmed together." He's like, "The hood was telling me about that shit." He wanted to go ride on Tony Sunshine after that, man.
So, what is your perception of Tony? Because he's the R&B singer, but at times he tries to exude this tough guy exterior, right? Like if you read his social media posts at times, like to me, in my opinion, it comes off very insecure. Like I think that he should just be the R&B singer. Like he's talented, he can sing, but the problem is, yes, you have a lot of tough guys around you. You have some guys really about that life, but you don't have to be that.
Right. Yeah, 100%, man. When I look at his situation, it's like the whole tough guy image mixed in with the R&B, it doesn't work. But back in the day, these guys didn't know that. I've been around other R&B singers who tried to employ those same methods. They kind of think like the 90s era, like that they wanted that rough, like how all these dudes were rough and from the streets. They wanted that on the R&B singer, but they must not be remembering like the Genuines and like all the way that some of these guys blew up. Like you got to show your soul. That's why the Weeknd blew up. The Weeknd's not here trying to act like he's going to drag you from his Tim boots. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
The
I mean,
Weeknd.
that's what R&B music is, right? You're like bearing your soul, your heart, and everything. That's what people like in that genre.
Yeah, man. And honestly, that's where I feel like some of these guys, Tony Sunshine in particular, went drastically wrong. You know what I mean? Shit. And then the insecurities. It's like, Panda, why does he dish you? You know what I mean? Why did he dish you?
I know, like that was my whole thing, because it's like I spoke to his people. I had offered him an opportunity to come onto the platform, tell his side of things, and he didn't want to do it. his people said that, yo, Tony doesn't like to talk about negative things, but then on social media he's constantly taking shots and everything. Like for me, it's just like I'm just the news guy. Like go and get mad at Cuban, get mad at the people that are saying the things about you, you know? I mean,
come address it. If you're going to address, Panda Chop News, come address it on the Panda Chop News YouTube channel, man. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to just go on rants on your Instagram, social media, and then you're going to, in the next breath, you're going to say, oh, I don't like to address the beef. Well, now you're addressing the beef and it's on 18 random YouTube pages. Like, what do you think we are? We're in the 90s or something where you make this video and it's not gonna just start going viral.
right.
You
You
know,
could lie about it and say that it doesn't exist and everything.
it's not
Um,
the 90s no more, bro. And you know what I'm saying? And I think it's a little bit too late because with the weekend taking over the R&B music scene, he really just showed that you don't need to be no tough guy, thug. Like that's not what R&B is about. Please miss me with that tough guy R&B shit, man. You know what I mean? And I'm a big R&B guy. I'm a big R&B fan, man.
Me
So please
too.
miss me with the tough guy R&B shit, man.
So have you spoke to Tony after that situation?
Not whatsoever. Tony Sunshine doesn't seem to have addressed the situation whatsoever. Tony Sunshine has never reached out to me. Um, yeah, he never reached out to me whatsoever. I'm really shocked that he didn't address the situation on Vlad. But like you say, he wouldn't come on here and talk about controversial situations. I would have to imagine that may have been one of the topics he took off the table for his Vlad interview.
Would you say that your initial reaction was anger after that situation happened with him, or like you were confused? Like, what would you say that you were feeling?
My initial reaction to that, man, was how do we move forward? How do I move forward in the game? Because I don't want people to think this is going to scare me from doing what I love to do. You know what I mean? I was like, I got to go out there and I got to create better content. I've got to get bigger interviews. You know what I mean? I got to keep on doing things, so that's why I just kept my ear to the street. I kept I kept what was in my heart too. That's why I went out and was covering Big L's homie Herb McGruff, but I also wanted to go out there and cover bigger stories as well. Like that's why I went after the French Montanas. That's why I seeked an interview with Max B while he was locked up. You know what I mean? Got an interview with Rick Ross. Ended up going to the Pop That music video shoot with French Montana and doing an interview with Lil Wayne. That's really what I knew I had to do after this situation. I was like, yo, Mikey T, you need to show the world that you're not going to give up.
Have you spoken to Joe directly before?
I actually did get a chance to speak to Fat Joe. Man, I knew if I was going to be out in Miami because I was working, I actually got an opportunity to work at Circle House Studios. Shout out to my bro BB Lewis, Berserk, Lunch Money. Lunch Money's actually blowing up right now like crazy. Um, and I got an opportunity to work at Circle House and start going to every single club you could imagine. Club Live, Mansion, Cameo, Story, all these nightclubs. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be running into Fat Joe out here. So when I run into Fat Joe, I want to apologize to Fat Joe. I want to apologize to Fat Joe for the fact that I would even release a clip that would, put any type of mustard on his jacket, any type of clip that would really put any type of, doubt in any of the Terror Squad fans' minds. Because that's not why I got in this game. I didn't get in this game to ruin people's perception of great hip hop groups. So I knew in my mind that is something I wanted to do. Apologize to Fat Joe, introduce myself to Fat Joe, and I did not know how that was going to go. I didn't know if Pistol Pete was going to be there and he was going to grab me and throw me. I didn't know if there was going to be a big bouncer like, no, you can't talk to Fat Joe. So one night I'm at Club Mansion in Miami.
What year is this?
This is in 2013, 2012.
Okay.
This is like relatively soon after the incident, probably within the same year, something along those lines.
Mm.
So I get the opportunity to run into Fat Joe. I'm like, I'm like, oh, Fat Joe's at this club tonight. We're gonna be there in VIP. I'm gonna say something to Fat Joe. Fat Joe is there in the VIP. I make my way up to him. I don't get stopped by any bouncers whatsoever. I walk up to Fat Joe. Let him know I want to say something to him. So he puts his ear so I can say something to him. Yo, Joe, I'm Mikey T, the movie star. He looks at me. I want to let you know my bad. I'm sorry about that Tony Sunshine footage. I feel horrible about the fact that I even released that shit, that I let it get out to World Star. Pretty much put that out there. Fat Joe said, don't even worry about that shit. That shit's nothing. Don't even worry about it. I didn't even see it.
Mm.
That's what Fat Joe said to me. That whispering in the club in the ear, that type of vibe, you know what I mean? Real shit. I could have got mopped up that day, but mopped up or not, I wanted to let the legend Fat Joe know that that shit was my bad. You know what I mean? Because as the content creator, whatever, I shouldn't have let that shit get out because of the fact that it tears down what we're doing in this culture in the first place.
So was Pistol there?
I don't know if Pistol Pete was there, man. To be real with you, I don't know if Pistol Pete was there.
Was he surrounded with a bunch of people though? It was like a
Raul,
bunch of dudes.
Raul might have been there. Raul's somebody that I had met, while working with Scott Storch and shit. You know what I mean? And this meeting with Fat Joe took place before I ever ended up working with Scott Storch. But Raul may have been there. Raul is a pretty much one of the closest affiliates of Fat Joe, I would have to say. He's always wearing the Terror Squad chain. You know what I mean? I would actually be able to make peace with him in the very near future from there as well. But I didn't really know any of the other dudes that were out there, you know what I mean, per se, how to spot them out in the club, you know what I mean?
Have you had a chance to talk to Joe since then?
Since then, the only interaction I ever got to have with Fat Joe was one time when I was on Miami we were right by Lincoln. It was right by Lincoln, one of the main streets, maybe Lincoln, maybe a few streets down, maybe right more on South Beach. And I seen Fat Joe walking. He seemed like he was going into a building. I was with my boy, it's Matic. And I was like, yo, Joe, another round. Joe, another round. You got one, Joe. You got one, Joe. Joe looked back and Joe's like, I'm like, you got one, Joe! Another round! You know that record he had released with Chris Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
That's dope.
my last interaction with Fat Joe.
And you've interviewed Cuban before, right?
Yes, I interviewed Cuban Link a couple times, actually. I did an interview with him probably in 2012 as well as more recently.
What are your thoughts on the whole Fat Joe versus Cuban Link situation?
Fat Joe and Cuban Link, man, to be honest, the situation is a shame. You know what I mean? That we didn't get to see Big Pun blossom into the artist that he was supposed to be, where he had his own record label and he was putting out artists, whether if that would have had a different impact for guys like Cuban Link, Prospect, you know what I mean, Remy and Tony. If it would have had a different impact, we don't know. You know what I mean? What would have been the position? It's kind of like what happened with Diddy and Biggie. Would Biggie have taken on a label of his own as well? But it's very sad what happened to Cuban Link after working on his 24 Karat album for so long, getting so many different features, and then ultimately not getting to release the album because it really just seemed like they had taken so much time with that project. And the fact that they didn't really start to develop the other Terror Squad members, that's what ultimately hindered the Terror Squad group on the second album when they had Lean Back and the album only moved like 95,000 copies first week. The fact that nobody had really been properly introduced to the members of Terror Squad, you know what I mean? Like, like 50 Cent spent years introducing us to Lloyd Banks, and
Right.
then, Young Buck and Tony Yayo, and then then putting out the Beg for Mercy album before releasing their solo albums. But yeah, that whole situation is tragic because then it got violent and it got taken to a place where it's almost like there's no returning from that. Even though it kind of seems like Cuban Link is a real official G to take getting sliced in the face like that and still even being open to have a conversation with Fat Joe. You know, from my talks with him over the years, it kind of almost seemed like he would be willing to sit down with him and figure shit out. But like Fat Joe is saying, oh, I'm not even going to do the Big Pun project until I get the official apology. And I would have to imagine that's where that's where Fat Joe and Cuban Link come together again, because I think Cuban Link, being the best friend of Big Pun, would have to be like thoroughly involved in the project as well.
Most definitely, man. I mean, it is a sad situation because I feel like TS as a record label had so much potential, right? Imagine if Joe was able to put out all those individual projects and prove them to be successful. Imagine how many Latin artists would have came and signed with that label over the years. It would have became a powerhouse because of how much that group, those artists meant to that community, to the Latino community, as far as representation and everything. It would have did so much. And in the end, like, the fans are what really lose out on things, But I feel like through the conversations I've had with Cuban, he's been willing to admit certain things that he was at fault with. But I feel like publicly, at least, Joe has never vocalized any wrongdoing, anything, and in any situation, nobody is faultless. So whether you believe that, Joe is blackballing Cuban to the full extent, he was responsible for him to get his face cut or anything like that, everybody is responsible to some extent. But the fact that Joe has never humbly in any way admitted to any wrongdoing about anything, that's why I think there will never ever be peace between them. Because like you said, when you take things to the streets, it's damn near impossible for you to piece it up after that.
Yeah, this cycle, we've seen it repeated time and time again. You know what I mean? Like, I was brought up Easy E a little bit earlier. Easy E had Dr. Dre and Ice Cube signed to his label. Ultimately, didn't really do anything with them, but he got a major deal for Ruthless Records. Gucci Man, you know what I mean? We've heard Free Frenchie. We've heard Frenchie talk about all types of shit about how Gucci got the major deal for Brick Squad, didn't really ultimately do anything for the Brick Squad members. Then you look at the situation with Fat Joe and Terror Squad, a label that really could have birthed so many different artists, from R&B singers to female rappers to other Latino rappers like Cuban Link coming up after Big Pun. You know what I mean? So we've seen this cycle really repeated multiple times throughout the industry, where the major artist just is not willing to take the gamble. I think it's taking the gamble on the artist. Now, Fat Joe would probably disagree with that. He'd probably say, well, we spent X amount of dollars on the 24 Karat album. You know what I mean? But then they have records with Pink, and they never released the album. I bet you if they would have put out a video with Pink and Cuban Link, the shit would have probably sold like 130,000 first week. But they just like to discredit sales like that, like it's nothing.
I think that's crazy because they said that the album didn't come out because it was projected to only sell 5,000 records. I mean, come on. During the 90s, early 2000s, that era, people weren't pirating music on the level, later on. So like it would have definitely still sold, especially because the amount of hype that was around that group at that time, especially people were looking at Cuban as being the next up artist, right? After Pun had passed. Like there was a lot of hype around him. And like you said, there was a lot of good features on that album. You could argue that they had put out the wrong singles, although I do think Flowers for the Dead was a appropriate single for that album because of the timing and the passing of Big Pun, But like you said, that Pink song would have definitely taken off.
Yeah, they kind of confused the buyers. They confused everybody with the history. If you remember back in the day when you would purchase an album, there would be like a flyer in it that would say, "This guy's album coming July, this album coming, this album coming," and they kind of confused all the fans that were purchasing the material. And then it's like, "Oh, another Fat Joe album? Oh, Get It Poppin', another Fat Joe album." Like, it's no doubt about it, Fat Joe sold some records, you know what I mean? But creating the legacy and actually creating the imprint, it would have just made everything so much bigger. and I've already named the 3 or 4 different artists that they could have had on their imprint.
Absolutely. I feel like Joe could have been viewed as a really big businessman, and it would have been amazing. Like it really is sad that it never came to fruition, because I think that although Joe has experienced great fame and success since then, that particular era and what it could have been would have put him on a different trajectory entirely.
Yeah, he honestly could have been the president of Def Jam Records if he would have taken it a different way. Jay-Z became the president of Def Jam Records because he actually focused on putting out his artists like a real label would.
Hmm. And
So
I think that also that Cuban was ahead of his time with the as far as thinking about the melodic kind of vocals, the melodic kind of songs, as well as incorporating some of that Latino kind of flavor to the music, because he said in the past that like was very hesitant about that, and Joe definitely wasn't on board for that.
well, if Fat Joe would have jumped on Flowers for the Dead, I bet they could have moved 30 or 40,000 units first week. And another thing I want to point out is I had done an interview with Young LA, T.I.'s artist. He had the song called Ain't I? If you remember, that song actually came out after Shoulder Lean. And his album they had 130,000 pre-sales for his album, and the label still would not release the album because they wanted to jack it up to at least a 250,000 to 500,000 in pre-sales. So there's been many different, occurrences of rappers' albums being dropped. Like I remember hearing Cadillac Ta talking about taking a buyout on his album for $100,000. We'll put the album out, or we'll give you $100,000 to go back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? Sometimes you should take the album coming out, is all I want to say, so you can at least have the history.
Right, most definitely, man. So I got to ask you about my man J Hood.
J Hood.
I know you and Shaheem spoke about this on your channel, and he urged you brothers to fix things. What happened in that situation, and do you foresee you guys ever fixing things?
J Hood. NMG, the non-money getters. He's one of the leaders of the non-money getters, J Hood. You know what I mean? But anyways, the whole situation with J Hood and me popped off after I had dropped an interview with Snipe Life. Actually, I really just filmed a clip with Snipe Life from D Block outside of the Love music video shoot that Benny the Butcher and Millie's and Tony Moxberg and Jadakiss, all them were at. So I filmed this clip with Snipe Life, basically talking to him. I was like, so everybody knows what happened to Bully. Everybody knows that J Hood either got kicked out of D Block or left D Block. And Snipe Life cut me off and said, kicked out. He got kicked out of D Block. And when I dropped that video on my Instagram page, J Hood hit me up like, yo, how are you gonna do this to me? How are you gonna do this to me, Mikey T? I'm like, yo, bro, what are you talking about? I didn't do shit to you. I said what the general narrative is about you on the internet. You either got kicked out or you left. The fact that Snipe Life said something else has nothing to do with me. I'm having a conversation with this man. So Snipe Life and I would go on to do an interview where Snipe Life, we did like an hour-long joint. I put it up. J Hood hits me again. I'm like, yo, J Hood, my G, did you watch the interview? Did you watch the interview, J Hood? Because if you properly watch the interview, you would see that Snipe Life literally in the interview said he made a G call to you to apologize. He made a call to you to apologize about all the speculation and shit like that that's going around about D Block. So before you jump on me about something I put on the internet, how about you watch the entire clip? You know what? So J Hood literally called me on New Year's Day. J Hood called me on New Year's Day. I mean, come on, man. He called me at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I have a prior relationship with J Hood to the point where J Hood invited me out to Virginia to film him. I done rode up and back to the Bronx 3-4 times to film J Hood. I done filmed J Hood's homies. You know what I mean? So we had that type of relationship.
So how far does the relationship go back? Like years?
Yeah, the relationship literally goes back to probably 2010 when there was a speculation that J Hood had taken a meeting with 50 Cent.
Right.
So me and J Hood spoke on that, and that clip went on World Star. So J Hood knows it ain't nothing like that. The clips that we were doing, they had traction. You know what I mean? So J Hood hits me up on New Year's Day. We go
And this
back
is 2022, 2023?
2023 this year.
Wow, okay.
So I'm picking up the phone, right? You know, shit, we go back. Some people I'm not picking up the phone for at 9 o'clock on New Year's Day, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm still getting my shit together in the morning. You know what I mean? But anyways, so J Hood calls, we have a conversation, and this is when I tell him, I'm like, yo, did you watch the interview, bruh? The dude said he actually apologized to you, Hood. And I'm like, yo, but bro, if you want to come on the channel and speak out, because I know there's a lot of controversial shit going on with you since the Math Hoffa interview, I'd be like, that'd be great if you came back on the channel. And he was like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. I was like, all right, straight. That's what's up. So I take the next 2 or 3 days preparing an interview, literally a couple hours a day. You know how this shit goes, Panda. You put together an interview, you want to make sure you have it right.
Right. Takes all the research, you write your questions, everything like that. It takes a lot of work. Yep.
You got to watch different interviews. I had to watch the whole freaking Math Hoffa experience, which probably goes on for about almost 2 hours. You're taking time out of your life to put something together. So you at least are hoping that the person you're doing this for appreciates it. So I put together this whole interview. And, after 2 days, 3 days, I text Hood, yo, got the interview together. When are you free? Are you free? Da 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 da, maybe. No response. I'm like, weird. Wait, 2 days go by, no response. Then I'm like, oh.
Is it left on red?
No, it's just no response.
Oh, okay.
So I call. Boom. Right to the answering machine. The phone's off. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, for real? Is J Hood pulling that shit on me where he's going to have made me wrote up a whole interview and then just ignore me? So I'm like, all right, you know what? I have another number on J Hood. Let me see. I'm hit up the number. Yo, Hood, this still you? What? Da 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 da. Actually, I had texted the other number. Yo, Hood, this still your number or something like that. So then I'm like, all right, let me just call. I'm like, fuck it, let me just call. So I call. It rings twice. He picks up, hangs up. And that's when I texted, yo, Hood, is this still you? And then he texts me back, KYS. Panda, off top, do you know what KYS stands for?
Kill yourself?
I'm like, yo, I hit my boy up. Yo, bro, you know what KYS stands for? I look it up on Google. KYS. Kill yourself. Really? I'm like, really? This dude is going to sit here and tell me KYS? That's why.
Why do you think he did that?
Because of the fact that he had got on Math Hoffa's show. Now he doesn't need Mikey T, the movie star, anymore. Because
you really think that you really think that that's how he feels though? That like he's above being on your show now? I mean, you got a lot of subscribers.
Yeah, that's how he definitely feels, man. That's how these dudes get when they get on the big platform.
But to be fair though, he came on my channel when I had like 6,000 subscribers. So I don't know, man. I don't foresee him feeling that way because you're such a bigger brand and he has a history with you though.
Nah, bro. Like I had said a little bit earlier, a lot of these guys that I've worked with, it's not like I'm going to have them on the channel now. But if I were to go on a major network, a lot of them would come back with open arms just to be like, yo, Mikey T, of course we're going to show you love. Of course we're going to embrace you now that you got your new situation. You know what I mean? A lot of people would actually do that, but they, at this point in time, you know what I mean? They kind of, sometimes an artist feels like been there, done that.
Have you?
And I got that vibe, man. But also coming up in the game, a lot of these dudes coming up in the game, once they experience a level of success, They get like that, man. It's just like you said a little bit earlier. When an artist signs a deal, it's going to be a little bit different. You know, like I've experienced that before. That's just the way I was feeling about it. You know what I mean? That's the way I was feeling about it.
So what happens after he texts the KYS?
After he texts me KYS, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, so this dude just threw me through the whole loop of writing the whole interview. You know what, man? I'm like, screw it. I'm like, I'm gonna set fire to his ass on the internet, man. I'm about to light this boy up. I'm about to ether this D Block reject. So I did a video and I actually was coming up with some sort of an idea that all of these rejected artists should come together and create an album. You know, I was just going off on a tangent and I was like, J Hood, the game, the D Block, the G Unit reject. I'm like, they might as well have the Wu-Tang reject, Shaheem come into the group. And then after I said that, my phone started blowing up. My phone started blowing up like crazy. Shaheem started messaging me while I was on the live.
Wow. And you had Shaheem on your channel after the fact, right? So what did Shaheem say to you?
I actually had Shaheem on the channel the same night. So after I went on this whole J Hood tangent, basically going off about every level of how he screwed up his relationship with D Block, Shaheem starts calling me. So I'm like, damn, I don't know what Shaheem is going to do. You know what I mean? I don't know if Shaheem is going to come onto the channel and potentially have some music in the background. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know if he was going to not come on the channel and have like a level of respect. But Shaheem is actually a very intelligent dude. You know, he knows about all the rules and the logic behind YouTube. So he actually came on the channel that very day with respect. And that I really appreciated, because a lot of times, man, somebody will come on your channel trying to, you know what I mean, do something to get you to delete the video immediately. So that's one thing I had to say I respected about Shaheem.
Did you apologize for including him in the list?
Oh, oh yeah. You could say it was a mistake, you know what I mean? Like, but if I didn't when I was doing some notes that day and I was just going off in my brain about what I wanted to say on the internet, if I didn't include Shaheem in the notes, he would have never tapped in that night and we would have never gotten an understanding. He would have never showed me that he actually hung up his flowers that Nori gave him. He hung them up right on his wall. You know what I mean? We got to chop it up. A lot of people say, Mikey T, you clammed right up when Shaheem came on the channel. That's what I'm supposed to do. When Shaheem comes on the channel and he's giving me an impromptu interview, I'm being professional about it. I'm not on there trying to go back and forth with Shaheem. Like I said, what I do is out of respect for the culture. Shaheem has a prominent place in the culture. His story is something that a lot of people respect and a lot of people actually acknowledge, whether you're just somebody of a fan perspective or you're somebody from the industry perspective.
So have you seen any interviews where J Hood is addressing the situation with you?
J Hood has not addressed the situation with me, I don't believe. Now he addressed the whole situation with Lord Jamar. You know what I mean? He caked up on the views off of that. But I guess it's probably because he saw that I only probably got about 5,000 views on my rant about him. You know what I mean? But my rant about J Hood, it became much bigger than that. You know what I mean? My rant with J Hood became a conversation with Shaheem. You know what I mean? The rugged child, that actually turned into one of my best interviews, I've got to say. So a positive light did come from that.
And they were doing an album together, right, at that time?
Right. They were doing an album together, and Shaheem did come on my channel and say, I can understand stray shots. I can understand you're standing by somebody, you know what I mean, and a stray shot hits you. And that ultimately has to be what made Shaheem back away from the J Hood album. Probably low views as well. You know what I mean? Because now, since all of the initial buzz of Styles P, dissing J Hood has gone down, J Hood's the J Hood really doesn't have as much traction right now. Also, I think Shaheem didn't he lock in some sort of a deal? You know, I know Shaheem is kind of blowing up himself.
I think I heard something about that as well.
I wasn't sure if it was Rock Nation or not. I didn't want to misspeak
I
on
think
that.
so. I think that's what it is. I didn't do enough research about that, so I can't say 100%. But I did hear something along those lines. So you and J Hood, no chance of you guys squashing it.
You know, J Hood said something to me. He said KYS. You know what I mean? If you tell someone KYS, that pretty much means that you don't ever want to squash something with somebody. You know what I mean? That's why I was taking the situation so serious, because for someone to say that to me when I done put hour and time of my life just to make sure that I could come and film you and all that shit. For someone to say that to me, it's the utmost level of disrespect. But if J Hood wants to come and talk it out on the channel, I'm going to allow him to do so. You know, Shaheem had said something to me. He said, "Yo, I hope you and J Hood piece this shit up." So I'm not going to disregard what, you know, somebody like Shaheem says. You know what I mean? I am going to, you know, at least listen to when somebody gives me advice like that.
Well, I hope you guys are able to. I've had great interactions with Hood. He gave me an interview and everything. So I appreciate him. And I don't know. I guess it's an unfortunate situation in my eyes, but I can understand if that's something that you experienced, why you would feel the way that you do about it.
Yeah, I saw that interview that J Hood did with Cuban Link too. Yeah, it kind of seemed like J Hood.
Mikey T, come on, man. You know what you're doing, okay? You smart. You're a smart guy. You know what you're doing with these little jabs and stuff like that. The little acronym names, you know, the NMG and
Non-money
man.
getters.
Come on.
Him, Hassan Campbell. It's the
You're
non-money
gonna get me in
getters.
trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble, man.
Nah, man.
Can you break down in detail the situation with Lick Moss and King Erner and how it ended up in an altercation?
Leek Moss. Yeah, Leek Moss actually decided to part ways with Dark Low. You know, he decided instead of continuing the OBH brand when ARAB got locked up, he decided to part ways with Dark Low and start dissing him. You know what I mean? So at that point, I was really confused. You know what I mean? I probably should have remained neutral in that situation, but I was just like taken back that Leek Moss was going to diss Dark Low when there were just literally talks of them doing collaborative projects. You know, I'm not afraid to admit when I take a L. You know what I mean? We all take L's in the situation.
That's a fact. We all do, man.
You know what I mean? We all take L's in the situation, and maybe I was talking a little bit too much shit on Leek Moss. You know what I mean? Maybe putting up the pictures of Leek Moss when he looked like he was squeegeeing Arab's car and shit like that. Maybe that was a little bit too much. You know what I'm
So wait, did you have a relationship with AR Ab? That's why you decided to do that, or like what prompted you to insert yourself into that situation?
Well, you know, I had been filming with Dark Low since like the early 2010s, and he actually put me in line with ARAB to the point where Ab, you know, the loyalty that these guys show each other, it's pretty much like Ab had told me, "Yo, Mikey T, you're Dark Low's man. He's told me about you, so that means I will do anything for you." And I was like, damn, I was like, the loyalty runs deep here. It runs thick here. And I appreciated that out of Ab. And we had kept a relationship going throughout all the time when he was locked up. You know, Ab and me were texting all the time because he had a federal device. Dark Low was a little bit different. You know, Dark Low did not like the text on that federal device, but we did exchange letters. So the whole thing with Leek Moss basically came up. Like I always go to Max's, you know. So Gilly had $1 million worth of game event. I had stayed in Philly the night. Next morning, I was going to go to Max's, get a cheesesteak. You know, probably not the best idea. Arab told me I should have went to DeSandro's, or sorry if I'm butchering that name, But yeah, Ab told me I should have went somewhere else. You know what I mean? Leak Moss ran up, but yo, I'm not the type of person to run. I'm not going to be running on camera. You're not going to see me running on camera. And for anybody out there that thinks what Leak Moss did to me, I mean, was gangster, that shit wasn't gangster. You know what I mean? Honestly, when he pulled up on me that day, I was not going to run, and I'm not going to let somebody slap me in the face. So that's why.
So so you were there, you were on Instagram Live. Was your intention to go there to provoke something, or you were literally just there to try to get a cheesesteak?
Well, I was on YouTube Live actually.
Okay.
I was on YouTube Live, and I was really just there to get a cheesesteak. Every time I go there, Max's is my favorite spot to go. I literally, in my mind, did not even know that Leak Moss actually lives down the street. Like I said, I really, I'm not really thinking about this type of shit. You know what I mean? In my mind, I'm not thinking about, provoking another dude. You know what I'm saying? They do say I was provoking because when I was on live, some dude had come up to me when I was at Max's and actually asked me for some shit. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, dude asking me for some shit like that. I'm like, because I didn't really ever
What did
experience.
he ask you for?
He asked me for some freaking drugs. You know what I mean?
Oh wow. Okay.
He's like, yo, you got some meth? And I'm just like, whoa. I literally dead ass had not experienced that. I didn't really know like the meth epidemic was out there like that, but you hear about things, you know what I mean? But I really never experienced that in life. I mean, somebody walking up on you maybe for some weed, you know what I mean? That's a different thing. So I had said that on live, and they tried to make it look like I was dissing Philly, which I would never do. Anybody know?
Wait. But you were also on live because you was checking out that fatty, okay? Because you were talking about that girl that walked by, and you were like, "Oh man, this girl's a baddie."
Oh, what? Yep. And then people playing Future's music.
Right.
And then, yeah, so I was just out there kind of having a fun. And I did mention that Leak Moss was going to buy me a cheesesteak. I was actually finishing my cheesesteak at that point in time. And I was like, damn, I could go for another cheesesteak. Leak, didn't you say you was going to buy me a cheesesteak? So, I mean, if you want to call that really intimidating anybody or trying to call somebody out, it is what it is. But going to Max's is just something that I did on a every trip basis. It was not to deliberately disrespect Leak Moss. And being that I had a relationship with Arab, I mean, I did clown Leak Moss. Like I said, I was clowning him because there was a picture of Dark Low and Arab, and then Leak Moss was like all the way back here, and he looked like he was squeegee in the car window or some shit. I did poke fun at him and shit like that, but in all honesty, I wouldn't really want to take it there with somebody who I am very close with, one of their relatives.
Do you regret that? You regret doing poking fun?
Like I said, maybe I took it too far with Leak Moss. You know what I mean? Because in all honesty, the things that Leak Moss and I could have done together uh, could have far outweighed anything that has happened now. You know what I mean? We could have had a whole podcast going where we were, breaking down the thoughts of AR Rab. I mean, really, who better to have done that with than his brother? But at that point in time, like I said, all of this was just so new to me because I was really just jumping on camera for the first time in 2020. So I wasn't really, I mean, shit, I was working with Bang'em Smurf, and we were just beginning to develop a series called Keeping It Real. So I was just kind of like new to putting my face on camera. That's why I didn't invite Leak Moss to do a podcast or any shit like that. But do I regret anything that I do? Nah, man, I don't regret what I do. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to do some more crazy shit like that in my life. So who are we to live by regrets, man? You know what I'm saying? I do not regret going out and getting a cheesesteak that day. I do not regret not running. I do not regret pulling back when he tried to smack me on the face and bear hugging his ass, no pun intended. You know what I mean? Because I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what he was trying to do. Maybe if he would have missed the smack, we would have just had a conversation. But nobody is walking up on me and smacking me in the face without it turning into something.
Right. So you had the phone and we see the phone go down, so we don't see him swing at you or anything. But I think I saw a video of you on live later talking about it, and you said that you had punched him in the head.
I was running around the mall. So I had to go. I went to the mall afterwards because that was pretty much the plan anyways. I didn't deviate from my plan. But yo, the live viewers went crazy after that. Because normally, I'll be on a live, there's like a few different people watching it. I went on live, I'm at the mall, there's over 350 people on my Instagram live watching. You know what I mean? So everybody is there watching me. There's a couple videos. I'm running around the mall. Yo, Rehabs' brother? I just punched him in the face. I'm just running around doing all this animated shit at the mall. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, yo, that's that crazy white bull that be doing all the ARAB shit. You know what I mean?
You're still bleeding at this time?
At that point, I was kind of cleaned up because I had went and got a water. You know what I mean? From, I think, right around the street from Max's, there's like a dollar store or something like that. So I went in and grabbed a big ass water. Some dude seen me. He was like, yo, Mikey T, that's you? Like, it's just crazy how, like, I was getting so much love in Philly like that beforehand, and then everybody seen what happened and shit like that. You seen the one dude come up, yo, that's my boy Mikey T. He's just drawing. And then at the end of the video, you see, well, did you have somewhere else you wanted to go real quick before we get
Yeah.
to the
So you swing at him, but we mainly see him like choking you out, basically, right, and lifting you up. You said that you threw yourself on the ground so that he could fall with you.
Right. Because what happened was he came over, slapped at me, and then what I did was bear hug him. And I got the opportunity to pull back and draw on him twice. And that's when he knew it was a serious thing. That's when he slammed me into the car. So he slammed me into these people's car that was literally right there the whole time. And then he grabbed me and put me in the full Nelson. So I'm thinking, yo, I've been, you know what I'm saying? I've been getting jumped since I was in the 3rd grade. You know what I mean? People done had the advantage on me. I thought King Erna was about to come and start laying in on me.
It did look like that.
Bro, I thought that was about to happen. That's why, as I told Dark Low, I actually tried to lift him up. I don't know if you could see my hand went under his leg by his calf. Like I was about to try to pick him up on some WWE wrestling shit. You know what I mean? So I just basically had to maneuver my body to the point where I threw myself on the ground and bro, I busted my beak open. Yo, bro, that shit, like, I shit you not, the way that you could see blood squirt out of your face sometime, I had never seen that type of shit. You know what I mean? But so then he had me dead to rights. He was over on top of me. He could have pounded me in. You know what I mean? He could have pounded my face in if he wanted to. He had me dead to rights. He didn't do that. That's what makes me question what he was really there for in the first place. But he just came at me the wrong way because if you're trying to slap me, it's going to turn into something. Like, I don't play that type of shit. I've been fighting since I was like 7, 8 years old, and I'm not letting somebody, I don't like to fight. Like, don't get me wrong, Panda. Like, growing up and shit like that, I ain't trying to run around and fight everybody like I used to when I was younger and shit.
Right.
But I'm not going to let this man come and slap me in the face.
So he ends up stopping, which was kind of surprising. I thought that it was going to go on for way much longer. And he kind of backs up, and then like you're backing away, and I think like you guys are like kind of talking shit to each other, and you kind of go back and you're like yelling at him. You're like, look at this, and everything, right?
I called King Erner a hoe.
Right.
Whoa! I'm like, you're a hoe. And if somebody was yelling that back at me after the fight, I mean, you're coming back and you're pummeling that man.
That's what a lot of people were surprised about, that it didn't ensue even more after that, right? Like people thought that by you doing that, they were like, man, like he's got some guts that he's still going for more, and that they thought that it was going to happen even more, but it just stopped there.
Yeah, like I was saying, man, I really just kind of feel like he wasn't, really wanting to do that. He can say all that he wants about wanting to drag me into a car and take me on a trip through Philly. been through as many trips in Philly as I can, remember. You don't need to take me on a trip through Philly. I just kind of felt like he was feeling a little bit of remorse. I don't feel like he went there that day looking to do that. You know what I mean? Different shit like that. And it really just arguably messed up a whole situation, kind of like the Cuban Link and Fat Joe situation, to where when violence happens, you can never really go back to being cool. And, I do believe Leak Moss came into one of my live videos and apologized at one point in time, probably because he was feeling kind of crazy about it, because like I say, a lot of people, if they're going to view that as like some tough guy shit, I mean, Black De Niro put it on a song. When him and Leak Moss had a little back and forth diss, Black De Niro actually put it in. You're on Erie Ave struggling with Mikey T.
Wow.
He used the word struggling.
Yeah. So has that situation been resolved behind the scenes or anything like that? Has any conversations been had besides him coming onto your live and apologizing?
Well, he actually I think he left a message. He left a message in the chat. But then I reached out to him. I said, yo, Leak, was that you who popped into the chat? He left it on scene. A couple other times, ARab had told me like, yo, make sure Leak Moss has this information. It's my new number. Make sure Leak Moss something, whatever. And I would relay that information and Leak Moss would be like, yo, get out of my DMs. Yo, stop talking to me. It's like, yo, geez, I'm not here trying to talk to you like that. But if your brother's going to ask me to relay a message, I'm going to do that. So don't read into it too much, but yeah.
Did AR feel like, remorse for that? Like that his brother did that? Like what kind of conversations did you guys have?
So what Ab told me about Leak Moss running up on me was, he was like, yo, he's like, you got to understand, Leak Moss is one of the toughest guys on the block. He's one of the toughest guys in North Philly. He told me there are people in North Philly who would not do what I did standing up to Leak. He said a lot of people would just back down to Leak because he was known as one of the best fighters. Ab also told me that I needed to use the momentum to, continue growing in the industry. Kind of like he was relating it to DJ Vlad after DJ Vlad had gone through that whole incident with Ross. That's exactly what he said to me. He's like, you need to use this time to really just keep on going and not let anything stop you. So I appreciated that from Ab, and after that incident, I must have released 150 videos, man. I just didn't want to stop. I want to use that advice. If I could do like what Ab told me, I wanted to use it as a propeller as well.
When these situations happen and it's captured on video and uploaded on the internet and it lives there forever, right? Is that something that you're embarrassed about, or did you used to feel that way and you learned to deal with it? Because I'm sure you get like so many times people troll you and like, they try to discredit you just based off that's something that's not even related to it, right? It's just like, oh, Mikey T got beat up on video, and like it's like it has nothing to do with anything, right?
It's always something to go back to, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
It's always something for people to go back to. Man, whether they believe in you, whether they fell off from believing in you, whether they've hated you from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? I remember from the beginning when I was putting all my videos on World Star, there were people commenting like, yo, Mikey T did this beef video, this beef video, this beef video. When is something going to happen to Mikey T? It's just crazy to see how, people theorize about you on the internet. Now, as far as public embarrassment, when you have people trying to show off your work to friends of theirs, and they're like, oh, my friend is Mikey T, the movie star. Let me show you what he does. And then one of the first videos that they pull up of you, it's you looking crazy, you know what I mean? Bloody mess, or you know what I mean? Pressed up against a vehicle. It's not necessarily your Lil Wayne video or your ARAB video, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it does make you feel a certain type of way. But in all honesty, I faced all my fears of getting on the camera back in 2020. You know what I mean? When I was first on the camera, reading off information from Rehabs' case and Dark Low's cases, I faced my fears then. So any fears of really getting on the camera, they're kind of over with. When that whole shit first happened to me, my first thing was to jump on the camera, even with a big busted nose. You know what I mean? Whether it was on Instagram.
You wanted to control your narrative. Like you
Right.
wanted to be the one to do it and spearhead it instead of allowing people to take control of that. Like, oh my God, you see Mikey T get his ass beat, blah, blah, blah. You were like, yeah, this happened, but here's this information and everything. That's really smart on your part. You didn't shy away from it, right?
Yep, exactly. Even though I looked absolutely crazy, you know what I mean? Even though, maybe people wanted to make fun of you at that point in time, you got to let people do it. Some people say the way I told Dark Low that story was funnier than when Soulja Boy told the story of getting shot on DJ Vlad.
Yeah.
So you just you got to be open in that. You got to show all types of character flaws that you have, mistakes that you've made, points in time where you look dumb. I mean, I remember at a certain point in time when Gilly the Kid was literally calling me out on camera, like, do you know what I'm talking about, Mikey? Have you ever seen a Puerto Rican knot, Mikey? I'm not a district attorney, Mikey. And it just kind of like, as a content creator, you would go, damn, Gilly's kind of embarrassing me there. That's going to make me look stupid to my audience. It's going to make me look less than dominant. But you got to learn to let that go, man. Let the people think all different types of things about you. If the people got more to think about, it's even better. So for the people all bringing up the Leak Moss shit, for the people bringing up the shit about Tony Sunshine or me owing Bangum Smurf $50, anything like that, man. Any type of conversation you bring up that you get brought up in, you gotta learn to embrace it, man.
These are gems, man, because me just still starting out like very early on and looking at people like you that have been doing this for so long, for over a decade. It's really great to know how to move, because there's a lot of pitfalls within the content creating space. It's just like the rap game. So I appreciate you sharing that. A lot of times, like people in the comments, because I make so much TS content, they're always like, yo, they gonna press you like they did Mikey T. You better watch out. And and it's like a common comment, and it's that's why I wanted to pick your brain about that. But you brought up Bangum Smurf. You're really smart. See, you already knew where I was gonna go with it. I appreciate that, man. You know when to pause too. When you see like I'm about to ask you a question, you know when to pause. You're good at what you do. Between you and Bangum Smurf, though, are things good now? You guys fix things?
I want to take I want to take this opportunity on Panda Chap News, this YouTube channel, and actually, use this as an olive branch to Bangum Smurf. You know what I mean? Like the whole shit with Bangum Smurf was taking totally out of context. You know what I mean? The whole issues with Bangum Smurf over a few dollars when we were on our way to creating probably something that would be pretty impressive right now. It really doesn't mean much. But Bangum is actually creating his own YouTube channel now, so I wish him the best of luck. If Smurf actually sees this, and I'm sure he will, I hope he'll reach out to me and we can kind of just put shit back together and move on from all that negativity from the past. Because we shared a lot of positive experiences together, whether it was standing on the stage with Rick Ross, or whether it was Smurf getting me some roti, you know what I'm saying, out in Trinidad, had me up in the Hyatt Hotel for like 10 days. Shit like that changes your life when you stay in the Hyatt Hotel for 10 days and you got people opening doors for you. You know what I mean?
Most
It really
definitely.
gives you another perspective on living. So what happened with Bangum Smurf and myself was basically we were creating content together, and we wanted to dub a podcast, Keeping It Real podcast. But Smurf was having some issues about shit that he wanted out. So Smurf was like, yo, Mikey T, edit that. I edited that, showed it to him. He's like, yo, that shit is fire, but you got to take out this part about Tony Yayo. Boom, go back, take out the part about Tony Yayo. Da-da-da. Oh, You got to put the part about Tony Yayo back in. I'm like, what is going on here, Smurf? Like, come on, man. Just stop giving me so many different directions when it comes to that shit. You know, that's how a lot of people that you work with will be. If you give them an opportunity to look at their headlines, if you give them an opportunity to put judgment on their thumbnails, sometimes you need to leave that in the perspective of the content creator. You know, Smurf always spoke very highly of me. He even made me the vice president of Feed the Wolves Records. But also, Panda, Smurf in the same breath told me if he was still on and popping with G Unit, I probably wouldn't know him.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Nah, Smurf and me had a great relationship, man. You know, the way we had our dynamic was dope, man. And he really was open to talk about whatever with me. Although he did.
Yeah, because he said that you went out to Trinidad like twice, right? Like he had taken you, flew you out there and everything. And the way that, because I watched that clip from the Soul, right, when he's in the guys in the car and everything, and they're talking about that situation with you, and it seemed like he was conflicted about it. Like he didn't want to talk about it, but he agreed to talk about it ultimately. And he said something happened over Gully TV.
Nah, nah, not really over Gully TV whatsoever. I think he might have been commenting about the whole thing with Leak Moss, where he said he
Okay.
saw, look what happened to Mikey T or some shit like that. And I was kind of taken back by that too. Like, Smurf, are you for real? For real? You're gonna talk about me getting that shit happen to me? Like, come on, Smurf. That ain't the type of loyalty I know from Bangum Smurf. Smurf would never do no shit like that. But that's interesting to hear you say that he seemed conflicted about actually doing that. And just to clear it up, I flew myself out to Trinidad. Just to clear.
Oh, so he didn't pay for it? He
No,
said that.
no, he did not pay for me to go out to Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? What Smurf did pay for was probably some KFC and the roti. You know what I'm saying? That's about all Smurf paid for me in Trinidad. I remember one of our boys, we were at this big ass hotel, and Smurf and Fredro Starr were doing an interview for the Guardian newspaper. And my boy Grams actually was buying a steak sandwich. And Smurf was telling him, like, nah, you're good. You're good. I got you. And Grams is like, yo, bro, I'm ordering a steak sandwich. Let me order my steak. It's like, yo, not everybody, we don't want to eat 2 drumsticks and some fries and some fruit punch every day of the week. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Smurf showed me a hell of a lot of love. But when I was in Trinidad, there was no weed out there. There was barely any weed out there. It was a rough time in Trinidad. And then even when we left, we missed our flight. We missed our flight. Domination and Grams got up out of there. They knew about that Bangum Smurf shit. They knew this guy, you better book your flight 2 hours after the fact when you're dealing with Bangum Smurf. So Smurf, please put in the real receipts about when me and my boy Newport Nick had to go get a $38 hotel TT. So that's like $8 US. We went and got this hotel that was right by the airport. So we damn sure didn't miss our flight the next day. And Smurf actually pulled up on us in Trinidad when we were at that crazy ass hotel. He pulled up on us the second day.
So the way that he told it though was that like you were disrespecting him, right? Like you weren't giving him money when he asked for it. Like he was testing you. You were saying like you lost your debit card or like these different things. And from your perspective, did you bark on him in any kind of way? Like he said you went live and you went off on him and you apologized after the fact.
Well, here's what happened. Actually, I had done an interview with Cadillac Ty, funny enough. No, I had done an interview with Bangum Smurf where he brought up how Cadillac Ty's girl was walking through the hood. And the G Unit guys saw her with a Murder Inc. shirt. So they all started throwing shit at her. You know what I mean? They started calling out at her, yo, shorty, whatever they were saying. You know what I mean? Cadillac Ty pulls up in 50's block with the black Cadillac. And he's like, yo, 50, what's going on? Why are your homies disrespecting my shorty? Like, put some respect on my shorty, man. What the hell's going on? So apparently, Smurf had told me 50 smacked somebody, 50 smacked somebody, and I was just getting the clip ready to put out. So Cadillac Ty calls me as I'm on my way home from Queens. And I'm like, yo, Ty, what's up? And we're just chopping it up on some random shit, because I've always kept relationships with a lot of those guys for years that I've interviewed. And so I'm like, yo, Ty, it's funny you hit me because I just did this story with Bang'em Smurf. And he's talked about how your shorty got disrespected by some of the G Unit guys and you literally had to go check 50. He's like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that shit. I think he was like, it was a white Cadillac though. It wasn't a black Cadillac. I'm like, all right. So then me and Smurf are always talking. You know what I mean? We've now graduated from MySpace to Facebook Messenger. It's pretty much just like a telephone. So we're talking and I'm like, yo, Smurf. I'm like, yo, that shit's crazy. I just spoke to Cadillac Ty. And this is the biggest misunderstanding of Smurf and I's relationship. Cause I'm like, yo, I just talked to Cadillac Ty. And he's like, he pretty much co-signed everything you said about that story, about the blog that we're about to put out tomorrow. And Smurf is like, yo, what the fuck are you doing, Mikey? Why are you telling these people about my business? Why are you telling these people about what we're talking about? What are you doing, Mikey? What the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, yo, Smurf, chill out. I'm like, chill out, Smurf. The blog is coming out tomorrow. What the hell's wrong with you? What are you flipping out at me for about this blog that you know is coming out? The blog comes out, does like 150,000 views. So that was really the first misunderstanding that Smurf and I went through. And that's when I apologized to Smurf. And we got everything back together. Smurf was like, yo, Mikey T's crazy. He flipped out on me. But you know what? We still going to have a relationship. And then after that, the whole money issue. So I had done something with my card. A lot of people give me flack on this, Panda, and you can either vouch or you can tell me that that sounds cap. So I had to get a new card. I lost my card. I canceled my card. They're sending me a new card. That takes a little bit of time. I lost my card again in the same week. I don't know what the hell was going on. I lose my card in the same week, and then I lose my card in the same week. So I called up the bank and they gave me this thing where they were going to send me my card one day. And then the next day they were going to send me my PIN. So they were going to do a method of sending it two different ways. And Smurf was asking me for $50. And I was like, yo, Smurf, I got like $130 in my pocket. I'm like, I really can't send you $50 right now because my card is going to be tangled up for like 4 to 5 days. And there might be a weekend in between that. So my bad, bro, but I can't do it. And then if he was trying to test me or whatever, I don't care, man. Don't try to test me on some shit like that. Because in all honesty, man, I got shit going where, you need to put gas in your car. You need to make sure that whatever, you know what I'm saying? So don't test me on no $50, man, because somebody like Smurf, I'd send that dude the world. You know what I mean? So please don't test me over no $50, man.
Yeah, because the way that he was saying, he was like that he was just helping you all these times because he doesn't make any money from YouTube. And honestly, man, I hope that you guys fix it. It seems like it's an issue between almost like family members. Like I can see talking to you right now. You do have genuine love for him. Obviously, you're never going to completely agree with 100% anything that anyone says. So, but that doesn't mean you can't have respect and love for them. And it seemed like you guys had a good relationship before. So I hope that you guys do sort it out.
Right. Hell yeah, man. Bring Bang'em back, man. And like I said, I wanted to use this opportunity with you today, Panda, to hopefully clear that up with Smurf because it's some BS. And, I've apologized to it. I've apologized for some of the things that I've said that I did not mean to say.
Did you reach out to him directly to apologize?
There is, yes, back in the day when I had first had an opportunity to reach out to him directly, I did apologize to him. That's on Facebook. Since then, I've been blocked on all forms of social media, though.
Damn.
But I mean, I'm not going to front because at first I did block Smurf on all forms of social media, and Smurf was feeling a certain way about that, and he was like, "Damn, this dude Mikey T literally just blocked me on all social media." I'm not sure if he said that in the interview with the dude from the Soul or not, but I do recollect him saying that at some point in time. So I could really truly see that he was hurt by me distancing myself like that. But I didn't respect the way he was coming at me about the content, especially when he knew what we filmed, what was about to be made public, and he just thought I was really giving his business out there when I wasn't.
Man, that's tough. Like I'm sure you've dealt with it before where you film something with somebody and then they question your approach, they want to change something, they almost blame you for something that they said, it's like, man, I'm just doing my job. Like you should know what to expect at this point, right? It's
Yep.
tough, but so I totally understand where you're coming from. Where you said earlier that like if anybody comes on my channel, you say something, don't hit me up later, tell me to take it out. It,
Facts.
it's hard, man. It really is, and especially because as a content creator, when you have it in your mind, you're already planning. You're like, oh, I'm gonna put this one out on this day, and so you get kind of almost like your hopes up. So then, like when somebody backtracks and they're just like, no, I don't want that out. You're just like, damn, you know what I mean? Like everything I had just planned is like out the window. Then
Yeah, you see whole interviews get destroyed over that. I've seen the first half of my interview where you just don't show any of it to the artist, majorly successful. You get a little bit of artist input, you know what I mean? And then it could shift. The artist has already given you their input when they did the hour-long interview with you. You know what I mean? That is their input to the topic. It's on you to do use your creativity from that point on.
the type of content that we create, it can be dangerous, right? Like as you've experienced, Vlad has experienced. There's always some kind of backlash. Why do you think it is that they get mad at the outlet versus the actual person that may be saying the thing?
Sometimes when an artist says something they didn't mean to say, you know what I mean? Sometimes when an artist says something they didn't mean to say, something that they've said several times to their best friends, their significant others, they start to feel a way. It could work in both ways. The artist feels a way about having said it on your platform and is like, oh my God, now the whole world is going to hear it. Sometimes when they see somebody on your platform that's like their op, somebody that they don't get along with, somebody that they've been in a shootout with, anything along those lines. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to just come at the platform host. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a little bit easier. I can't really think of a situation in particular right now. You know what I mean? Where one of the interviewers has faced scrutiny over doing something more so than the actual guy. You got any off top?
Well, like the Tony Sunshine situation, he's mad at me instead of Cuban for saying what he has said, right? The situation with Rick Ross and Vlad, right? Vlad had covered the whole, I believe, the correctional officer thing,
Yep.
but he's a media outlet, and that's his job to do that.
Yep.
And then Vlad got beat up for that situation. It just seems like the messenger gets sometimes the grunt of it.
Yeah, it's the same way. You know what I mean? It's the same way with a lot of other situations where the rappers just don't want to address the other artist. They want to pretty much address the person with the platform, which is why you see it plays right into Fat Joe and Cuban Link, how they're just going to ban Cuban Link from the platform rather than have to have dissension between each other. Because if Nori brought Cuban Link on the platform to discuss all those topics, there would be dissension. And it's like, Fat Joe doesn't want to keep on responding to Cuban Link. He would probably rather, Nori, what are you doing? No even mention of Cuban Link. Nori, what the hell are you doing having this guy on your channel, on your platform? There wasn't no missing link there. You know what I mean? Getting all subliminal about it. But yeah, that's how it always plays out, man, because I think it's because they don't want to give platform to the other artist more, even though the other artist is big or whatever sometimes.
Right. So for you, when you create content, is there like ever a line that you draw that you're not going to cross, or is it like content is king? Like you'll just do.
I won't do anything. I'll tell you that much. I won't do anything. Um, you know what I mean? I won't really allow somebody to come on the channel and talk about some crazy shit because I'm not going to bring it up in the interview. You know what I mean? I like to focus my interviews certain ways. I don't like to actually address things that are going to get you flagged on YouTube. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to address all the crazy suspect questions. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go into that. I'm trying to go into the real facts of things. Are we going to talk about people getting shot? Are we going to talk about people getting stabbed, robbed, extorted? Are we going to talk about RICO indictments? Sure, we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about the music, how people grew up. But there's just certain things I'm not going to touch. I mean, if somebody was facing some scandalous shit going on in their family, I'm not touching that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not here to talk about that stuff with the artist, just to be real with you. I'm not running one of them Dr. Phil like shows over here. I like to keep my stuff, on the music. Even the other night, you know what I mean? Gully TV was getting flamed in my man SV Twizz's chat. And Gully TV had come on and said some crazy ass shit about Dark Low. You know what I mean? But just because he says some shit about Dark Low, I'm not going to go on there and call him out for all the low hanging fruit that other people do. It's just not in my style. When you see me go in on Hassan Campbell, I'm not going in on Hassan Campbell about Bombada for the whole episode. That's just not that's just not in my character. I feel like some of those lines should not be crossed.
Yeah, especially if you're having an issue with somebody in particular, I feel like you should try to keep it about the topic at hand. That's why, like for me, like the situation with when Tony was getting at me, I could have went in on him. I could have easily said a lot of different stuff, but I kept it on the topic, like what he was talking about.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I was asking China Mac, because China Mac is a little controversial at times, and I
my
asked him, "Do
bro.
you think I went too far with this situation?" Because you know how Cuban he had told the story about Tony Sunshine getting slapped with the, and that whole situation had transpired, and Tony's people was getting mad at me. I had offered him a ability and a way for him to come on and he tell his side and everything, but he didn't want to do that. They got mad at me. They started trying to put that pressure on me, threatening me and everything. And they were getting that Cuban, dissing them, saying all types of stuff. And then that's when Cuban said, "You want to? I'm gonna set up the interview with the guy that slapped him."
Right.
Right. And I was hesitant to do it. I didn't want to do it. But when they started threatening me and trying to control my platform, that's when I kind of said, I'm gonna do it then. And so China Mac felt like he's like, yo, you didn't have to do that. You kind of went too far. But I was like,
Well,
yeah, but when you start threatening me and stuff, then I felt like, man, like maybe there is something to this then, because like a lot of times too, like with Cuban, is like people all the time say he's lying about stuff. But when I'm interviewing him, a lot of times I can tell that he is telling the truth. Certain things I'm a little questionable about, but then like when I wait, suddenly it gets confirmed by somebody else, and then I'm like, wow, he is telling the truth all the time. The times that I have wondered.
yeah, I gotta say, man, that's probably one of the most controversial stories that you put out there. I mean, that pretty much exposed Tony Sunshine. I mean, the guy was on a song called "My Dick." Let's be real. The guy's biggest record is a song called "My Dick." He tried to cover it up with "My Kind of Girl," but it didn't work, Tony. It didn't work, man. So, I mean, you got to think twice. This goes back to, dissing the blogger as well. You got to think twice before you diss the blogger because he's the one that controls the platform. We get so many offers every day. You know what I mean? I remember I did an interview with Cuban Link. He was actually cool with Tony Sunshine at the time. So I respected the boundaries. You know what I'm saying? But let's be real, man. When you come in, you try to take a shot at Panda. You don't come on the channel to do the interview and you're dissing them. What do you expect them to do? There's only so far you could push somebody. You know what I mean? And then it just, I mean, your history is a little shaky, Tony. You have a song called My Dick with Big Pun. What the hell is going on? What in the hell did you make that song for? That has got to be one. If we're looking back at music, that has got to be one of the most suspect acts in the music industry I've ever heard of, man. And this guy wonders why he never dropped an album.
Yeah, and as a platform, we have to be very careful with what we say because you look at Cardi B just won all those millions, for defamation, right? So again, I always say allegedly, but it's not looking very good for for the man. I'm just saying that,
Bro,
but yeah,
Tony,
like
Tony, you allegedly went to some weird ass parties. And you allegedly, Tony, you should have allegedly moved out of the way. What type of shit is that, man? How do you let another man come and do that type of shit to you, bro? What is that? Please, Tony, don't even address what happened to us. You need to address what happened to you at a party. Please, Tony. This is just
well,
weird.
what's crazy though is that recently he had said that if that did happen to him, he would have killed that guy's family.
Oh, Jesus. That dude is crazy. See, he be saying all the typed out, spaced out shit like that. You didn't, if you would have, how? Why wouldn't you have just punched the man in the face right then and there? What does that even have to do with his family? If that would have happened to you, you should have handled it right then and there. It doesn't have nothing to do with going back to somebody's crib. You know what I mean? If somebody's going to violate you in public like that, it has nothing to do with going back and seeing their grandparents and shit like that. And, Tony Sunshine has always tried to put himself off like he's a family man, talking about family values and shit like that. So to say something like that is absurd.
Yeah, and they were still cool after that allegedly happened, which I think is kind of insane. Like, I mean, like
I said, he did have a song called My Dick, so it really wasn't that much, you know what I mean, out of the norm for him.
Yeah, and people in the comments, they never have anything good to say about him. Like, I've never heard anyone say anything good. Like, it's crazy the stuff that they say about him. And I do feel bad for him, but sometimes I do see that he really does bring it on himself. And like people have said, like, yo, my girl was there at the party, and then like people are like, yo, you got to interview the girls now. And like, see, that's where it's like, it's too much. It's overkill. Like I'm hunting down witnesses and like doing too much. You know what I mean? Like the one interview with the slapper, that's one thing. But man, like really looking for the girls and the witnesses, like that's just too much.
Yeah, that's a little too much. But don't push this man, Tony. Don't push this man. I'm sure there's 10, 20,000 people who want to see that. But nah, man, Tony, I've seen a couple comments, like one or two, where they're like, yo, this guy's a good singer. Yo, I saw the one comment, where's this guy's album?
Yo, he allegedly does have a Spanish album coming out this summer. So
I thought you were gonna say he allegedly has 7 albums.
Well, that too, but so do you get mad about like, you've done interviews with other people, right? With other channels?
I really haven't done that many interviews, to be real with you, man. I have not done that many interviews. I've talked with Math Hoffa about doing interviews and shit. At that point in time, he was really trying to tell me that, like he didn't want the most controversial shit on his channel. I've talked with my homie Supreme McGriff Jr., who has told me things like, Mikey T, you need to make yourself more open to these people doing interviews. He's like, he's just giving me gems like that, letting me know that you don't have to feel a type of way about reaching out to somebody for an interview. And yeah, so I haven't really done that many interviews to address certain things, man. Dark Low pretty much was the first person to interview me.
Okay. So you're not going to get mad. We have it on record. You're not going to get mad when I named the title, exactly quoted what you said.
Hey, if that's what you want to do, man, it's Panda Chop News. You know what I'm saying? It's whatever you want to do, bro. Your channel is flourishing right now, man. You got the game on tilt right now, and you are the future, G's.
Man, I appreciate that. When you reached out to me directly, I was kind of like, really? Mikey T? I was like, dang. I was like, because I've watched your stuff like many times particularly the G Unit stuff because I love the G Unit
Cut off,
content.
bro.
What?
You just cut off. You just cut off for a
Oh,
second.
sorry. I was saying that like I've watched your channel for a long time, particularly about the G Unit related content because I love that era as well. And you have a lot of great guests. So when I saw that you reached out to me and you bigged me up and everything, it meant a lot to me because a lot of people they don't want to go out of their way. I don't know. They feel like if they're at a certain level, they shouldn't reach down. You know what I mean? So it meant a lot to me when you did that. It showed a lot about your character.
Nah, it means a lot to me to have the respect of the new crop of talent like yourself, man. People that are emerging in the game like you. And just like, honestly, man, I was talking to a couple of my homies, a couple of my friends about your material. And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I've been seeing that shit pop up. You know what I mean? So to see somebody have an impact like you're having right now, man, sky's the limit for you. Just keep it going. Don't let anybody downplay what you're doing. Like I told you, there were, you know what I mean, 20, 30 comments on World Star talking about when is Mikey T going to get his 20, 30 comments, but 2 or 300,000 views. You got to, you got to weigh it out properly, man. We're doing this shit for a reason.
Right. Most definitely, man. So what are your plans for the future? What's next for Mikey T?
My plans right now, this year already, I've had about 4 videos that have hit 100,000 views. So really, I just want to dig back into my glossary of content and just pull out a lot of the stuff that the people might have missed. Also, doing a lot more interviews. My homie actually has a place in New York, Manhattan, a studio that I'm going to start trying to utilize to film in-person interviews again, just because a lot of people are falling back from the Zoom interviews at this point in time for the live in-person interviews. So I'm going to try to get back into that. But also I want to start covering more news topics in smaller format as well. So just, subscribe to my channel, Report Card Radio, and make sure you watch, if you hit the notification bell, if you want to see me go live and go in on artists. I think you were asking me something about if I was got pissed about something. Yeah, it's pretty evident that I've gotten pissed about a few things when I have to write an interview for like 3 or 4 days, and then I basically get turned down for the interview after already getting accepted for it. That does piss me off. But like I said, when Shaheem came onto the channel, like Shaheem, I had hit up for an interview back in 2021. Didn't get the interview until 2023. So it's not like every person that denies me for an interview, I'm going to diss. That's just not in my nature.
Right. Yeah, most definitely, man. I feel you on that because I've had that situation before where I'll do the work. They had agreed previously. You're doing the work. You're watching all the interviews you can. You're getting the questions down. All of a sudden, they cancel on you, and you're just like, damn, man. And like, and then I've had times where they've come back around and now they want to do it again. And then I'm just like, at that point, I'm not interested, because of just like you showed me no respect. You know what I mean?
Well, just hold on to those interviews, bro. Like I'm saying, I keep it in my WordPress. You know what I mean? Sometimes bro, I just was about to do an interview with one of these dudes, and he hit me up on Twitter. After I noticed the Twitter went down, I hit him up on IG. He's like, bro, I don't even have a Twitter.
Wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right. But I'm not going to let it phase me at this point in time. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep on working. Like I said, you burn mad hours of your life, and you also probably burn mad money on the weed that you're smoking while creating these interviews. So I'm burning money writing these interviews,
Burning
man.
money to make money. Yeah, for sure, man. Um,
But I love the world that we live in, man. I love it, and I'm going to continue producing content, man.
for sure. But yo, Mikey T, man, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for giving me your time,
Facts.
giving me so much time, actually, too, man. I appreciate it, bro. Like, um, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say, but you're a legend in this game, and you've done a lot, and I just wish you so much more success in the future, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro.
We appreciate the opportunity to be on the channel, man. Like I said, continue to thrive and continue with that drive. You got this shit, bro. Appreciate you, man. Everybody watching this, shoot me a follow on Instagram, Mikey T _ the movie star. Let me know you saw me on the Panda Chop News. I'll get you the follow back. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to me on Report Card Radio. I'm going to have my man hopefully put a link in the description of my channel. Like I said, I do live videos.
Most definitely.
Appreciate that, bro. Live videos, interviews, classic throwback content, man. I pretty much put out a clip a day.
Yeah, for sure. You guys make sure you guys subscribe to him, man. He's doing his thing, been doing his thing for a long time. Salute to you, Mikey.
Appreciate you, bro.